Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales. Chapter 4777. While Linghu Dai was surprised, she also felt somewhat gratified. She had watched Kong Xinmu grow up step by step. She had also heard about some of the things that had happened to Kong Xinmu in the Dragon God's great world. After all, he had graduated from Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy. It was impossible for her not to pay attention to him. Therefore, Linghu Dai had a rough understanding of Kong Xinmu's current strength and level. However, she had not expected that Kong Xinmu would actually want to use the cultivation resources he had obtained this time to raise his strength to the level of a Dragon Emperor within 3 months. This was something that Linghu Dai had not expected. However, in her opinion, perhaps Kong Xinmu could really succeed? Then you'll have to work hard. Linghu Dai covered her mouth and said with a smile. After leaving Linghu Dai's place, Kong Xinmu and Xiao Bai quickly saw their teammates. Xiao Yuhua, Ran Ran, and Liang Xiao, along with Jiang Liuxue, Shi Yueying, and Shi Yutong, appeared in front of Kong Xinmu and the others. Kong Xinmu, you're back. The corners of Xiao Yuhua's mouth curled up, revealing a joyful smile. You guys are here. Kong Xinmu glanced at Jiang Liuxue, Shi Yueying, and Shi Yutong. He discovered that they had already inherited the essence blood of a Dragon Emperor. In that case, they could also use the Heaven-grade Divine Dragon weapons. Among the Heaven-grade Divine Dragon weapons that Kong Xinmu had purchased, they naturally had a share. Although Kong Xinmu had finally returned after such a long time, he did not chat too much with them. He only returned to the courtyard of Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy residence and took out the Heaven-grade Divine Dragon weapons he had purchased, as well as some cultivation resources, and distributed them to everyone. Originally, Jiang Liuxue and the others were a little embarrassed. However, since everyone had something, they accepted Kong Xinmu's gifts. Wasn't this gift too expensive? Heaven-grade Saint Spirit Dragon Weapon. After all, this was the best dragon weapon that the Dragon Emperor could use. As long as they could unleash half of the power of the Heaven-grade Holy Dragon Weapon, they could easily defeat opponents of a higher level. Even surpassing 3 levels of inherited blood essence to defeat an opponent was not impossible. This was especially true for Xiao Yuhua, Liang Xiao, and Ran Ran. The 3 of them had already cultivated the high-rank Divine Spirit Dragon Martial technique, so their foundations were already set. Through this Heaven-rank Divine Spirit Dragon weapon, they could erupt with even greater power. They were all at the 4th level of the Dragon Emperor's inheritance blood level, but they could even defeat some young 7th-level Dragon Emperor, just like Kong Xinmu before he went to the great world of the Dragon Gods. From this, it could be seen how much of a boost the Heaven-level Saint Spiritual Dragon weapon would bring to them. Needless to say, Kong Xinmu now had 2 super-powerful Heaven-level Saint Spiritual Dragon weapons that had been completely illuminated 3 times. Although he had not used them in battle, one could imagine how strong he was now. Moreover, Kong Xinmu still planned to make a breakthrough in his cultivation realm during this time. By the way, I also brought back some high-rank Divine Spirit Dragon Martial techniques. You can choose some to cultivate. Kong Xinmu suddenly thought of something. He then took out some jade slips and distributed them to Jiang Liuxue and the others. In fact, Kong Xinmu was only providing some resources, which were equivalent to the normal resources that the younger generation of some family forces in the great world of the Dragon Gods could enjoy. But for the Dragon Martial artists of the Dragon Martial continent, these were things that could only be encountered by chance. Jiang Liuxue, Shi Yueying, and Shi Yutong originally only wanted to see Kong Xinmu. They did not expect that Kong Xinmu would bring them so many precious things. Originally, they did not want to accept them, but for Kong Xinmu, these things were something that he could casually take out, so they accepted. While accepting, they were still a little shocked. How far had the current Kong Xinmu left them behind? They always felt that although they worked harder and harder, the gap between them and Kong Xinmu was widening. This kind of feeling was simply despair. After distributing the things, Kang Xinmu looked at Jiang Liuxue, Shi Yueying, and Shi Yutong, his heart slightly pondering. He thought that the talent compatibility of these three girls with the blood essence of the divine dragon could reach level 55 of the 5th level of the Dragon Emperor. With this talent compatibility, they could barely become third-class disciples of the 5 extreme mysterious Ice Holy Land, which belonged to the lower 3 classes. It was extremely difficult to improve. I wonder if I can help them break through the bottleneck of their blood essence by using the method of transferring the energy of the dragon mark? Kang Xinmu thought to himself. He planned to wait for a while before giving it a try. Liang Zhao's compatibility was 58, Xiao Yuhua's compatibility was 59, and Xiao Bai's compatibility was 62. All of them could cultivate to around the level of Super Divine Dragon. Among them, Xiao Bai's progress was smoother, but Liang Xiao and Xiao Yuhua would encounter some difficulties and hit a bottleneck before becoming Super Divine Dragon. It would be great if I could use the method of transferring to help them break through the bottleneck. Unfortunately, I'm not sure if it will work. Kang Xinmu thought of Gu Xinyue again. Gu Xinyue's compatibility was 61, which could only reach the 1st level of Super Divine Dragon. After that, she would hit a bottleneck. At that time, he could help her and see if he could help her break through the bottleneck more easily. Otherwise, the cultivation resources she would need to break through would be more than 10 times the usual amount. Even with the financial resources of the Gu family, it would be difficult for them to continue on the path of cultivation. In any case, Kang Xinmu had a rough idea now. His devouring and transferring ability might be of some use to help his friends break through the bottleneck, but he was not sure what the specific situation would be. None of his friends had reached a bottleneck in their cultivation. After they finished discussing business, Kang Xinmu brought everyone out for dinner before returning to his courtyard to rest. During the break, Kang Xinmu explained the situation to Ran Ran. This time, he had returned to the Dragon Martial Continent to look for those hidden geniuses. As long as a genius dragon martial artist had reached a certain level of compatibility, he would gather them. In the end, Kang Xinmu set a standard, which was level 60 compatibility. A dragon martial artist that reached level 60 would have the opportunity to be nurtured by him. Many places in the Dragon Martial Continent were very remote, and no one went to investigate whether the dragon martial artists there had enough talent. This was because they did not have enough cultivation resources to cultivate to the point where they could display their talent and enter the 4 great dragon martial academies. Therefore, Kang Xinmu believed that there were many such hidden geniuses in the Dragon Martial Continent. "Can I go with you?" Ran Ran said with some hesitation. Chapter 4778. In the end, Kang Xinmu decided to take everyone with him. Kang Xinmu and Xiao Bai had thought about it before. If they found enough genius dragon martial artists in the Dragon Martial Continent, they couldn't hand them over to Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy to train them, right? In that case, Kang Xinmu would not be cultivating his own forces. This was a force that completely belonged to him, so all the training resources were provided by Kang Xinmu himself. Naturally, he could not put them in the academy. Therefore, Kang Xinmu must send people he trusted enough to train and cultivate these genius dragon martial artists. The people that Kang Xinmu could think of were naturally Xiao Yuhua, Liang Xiao, Ran Ran, and the 3 women, Jiang Liuxue, Shi Yueying, and Shi Yutong. These people were the ones he could absolutely trust. In addition to these, there was also Dragon Emperor Yan. Therefore, Kang Xinmu still took the time to meet Dragon Emperor Yan, as well as Great Liang Dragon Emperor. Great Liang Dragon Emperor's son, Liang Luo, was now in Donghuang Yanguo College with Qin Xiaoye's team. This time, when he heard that Kang Xinmu planned to form his own force, Great Liang Dragon Emperor directly expressed his desire to participate. He could participate in the training of the genius dragon martial artists that Kang Xinmu had found. After all, He was the Dragon Emperor of Great Liang Dragon Country, and he had a deep understanding of the discipline and restrictions of the Dragon Martial Artist Legion. With him and Dragon Emperor Yan, they could train the entire genius Dragon Martial Artist team very well. Although in terms of strength, Kang Xinmu had surpassed Great Liang Dragon Emperor, and even Xiao Bai and the others' combat power was not much different from Great Liang Dragon Emperor. In terms of experience and knowledge in training new people, they were far inferior to these veteran Dragon Emperor. Therefore, with their help, Kang Xinmu was assured to leave his men to them. For this reason, the Dragon Emperor of Great Liang intended to call his son, Liang, over to help Kang Xinmu with this matter. Therefore, if Kang Xinmu could find some genius dragon martial artists, then there would be a lot of people to nurture them. It was mainly Great Liang Dragon Emperor and Yan Dragon Emperor. They were seniors. As for Xiao Yuhua and Ran, cultivation was still the most important thing. After all, they had not reached the bottleneck yet. Speaking of the bottleneck, that night, Kang Xinmu went to see the Yan Dragon Emperor alone. Among the older generation of Dragon Emperor powerhouses, there weren't many that Kang Xinmu could completely trust, but Dragon Emperor Yan was definitely one of them. Dragon Martial Continent, Yan Dragon Emperor Dynasty. Flame Dragon City, Great Liang Dragon Emperor, Yan Dragon Emperor, and others had already come down from the Dragon Martial Fortress and temporarily lived in Flame Dragon City. After discussion, the genius dragon martial artists found in the Dragon Martial Continent needed to be trained and cultivated in the Yan Dragon Emperor Dynasty. This aspect was handed over to the Yan Dragon Emperor. This night, Kang Xinmu went directly to the Yan Dragon Emperor Palace. Senior Dragon Emperor Yan, I intend to try and see if I can use some special method to help you break through the bottleneck of the inheritance blood essence more easily. Inside the house, Kang Xinmu whispered to the Yan Dragon Emperor. The Yan Dragon Emperor Yan was wearing a fiery red armor. Now he was at the 4th level of the inheritance blood essence of the Dragon Emperor, which could be considered to have improved quite a lot. However, because his inheritance compatibility was only 52, he had already encountered a bottleneck when he was at the 2nd level of the Dragon Emperor. Kang Xinmu, you still have such a way? If there is such a way, it will not be simple. The face of the Yan Dragon Emperor Yan under the fiery red armor suddenly became solemn. He was very clear what it meant if what Kang Xinmu said could really be realized. Now, many Dragon Emperor powerhouses could not break through because of the bottleneck, and it took several times or even dozens of times more cultivation resources to break through the bottleneck. This made it almost difficult for many dragon martial artists to improve much after reaching the limit of compatibility. If the method Kang Xinmu said was really successful, it could be said to be subversive to the entire Dragon God clan, and even to the cultivators of other races, there may be great reference significance. I am not sure if it will work, but I want to try it. Kang Xinmu said with a smile, and this will also consume the energy of the dragon mark in my body, so it is impossible to promote it on a large scale. In short, senior, let's try it first. Even if it does not succeed, there will be no harm. Now he was at the 4th level of the Dragon Emperor, and the Yan Dragon Emperor was also at the 4th level of the Dragon Emperor. He was not sure if he could pass on the Yan Dragon Emperor Yan. The Yan Dragon Emperor Yan had been at the 4th level of the Dragon Emperor for a while, and he had long been stuck at the bottleneck. Kang Xinmu also came to try because of a sudden inspiration. So the two went directly to an underground training field in the Yan Dragon City, and then the Yan Dragon Emperor ordered all the guards of the training field to stand guard outside, not allowing anyone to enter. Then, the Yan Dragon Emperor Yan transformed into the form of the divine dragon in this training field. Kang Xinmu's devouring power was released directly, condensing the energy of the dragon mark in his body, and then passing it to the Yan Dragon Emperor Yan's body. At first, there was not much feeling. But as the night went on, and it was even dawn, the Yan Dragon Emperor Yan's entire aura suddenly changed, and the divine dragon inheritance blood essence in his body seemed to be boiling. Kang Xinmu had helped the Shi Yueying and Shi Yutong's Dragon Emperor inheritance blood essence to break through, so this scene was not unfamiliar to him. Senior is about to break through. Kang Xinmu's face was full of joy. He felt that the Yen Dragon Emperor Yan's aura was improving and transforming. This was obviously in the process of breaking through. Originally, the Yen Dragon Emperor Yen might have needed a huge amount of cultivation resources to break through the bottleneck, but with the transfer of Kang Xinmu's devouring power, the energy of the dragon mark he passed to him directly allowed him to break through to the 5th level of the Dragon Emperor inheritance blood essence. Ignoring the bottleneck. This situation made Kang Xinmu a little excited. This also meant that as long as he was willing, even if his friends around him were not too talented, he could completely help them improve. Although he had used up a lot of dragon mark energy for the Yen Dragon Emperor Yan's breakthrough tonight, the results were gratifying. The dragon mark energy that Kang Xinmu used up, if he cultivated in the 5 extremes mysterious ice holy lands, would be back in 2 hours, but after passing it to the Yen Dragon Emperor Yen, there was an extremely shocking effect, allowing him to break through the bottleneck directly, and the grade of the divine dragon inheritance blood essence was improved. How shocking was this? If this method could be popularized among the dragon gods, in less than 3 years, the overall strength of the dragon gods would completely surpass the other races. Unfortunately, this method relied on the devouring power. For Kang Xinmu, this was his biggest secret, and it was absolutely impossible for it to be spread out. Moreover, even if it was spread out, he did not have the time to help all the dragon warriors of the dragon gods break through. Where would he have so much time to help others break through? Chapter 47-79. No matter what, it was an exciting thing. When the morning sun shone on Yen Dragon City, the aura of Dragon Emperor Yan's breakthrough swept through the surrounding thousands of miles. The powerful aura of the 5th level of the Dragon Emperor made countless dragon warriors in the city worship him. Dragon Emperor Yen took about 2 hours to break through. 2 hours later, he removed his divine dragon form and looked refreshed. He came before Jiang Shenwu with an unshaven face and a smile on his face. Kang Xinmu, I didn't expect you to be so capable. But we can't let this get out, or else. Dragon Emperor Yen was already thinking of Kang Xinmu. It's best that only our own people can use it. If it gets out, the consequences will be unimaginable. Senior, I think so too. Kang Xinmu said, then exchanged a smile with Dragon Emperor Yen. Let's go. Let's get ready and find some geniuses. These geniuses are your people, Kang Xinmu. In the future, I will even be under your command. Dragon Emperor Yen was in a good mood. Then, the others stayed in Yen Dragon City to cultivate. The news that Dragon Emperor Yen had broken through to the 5th level of the Dragon Emperor spread like wildfire, but no one knew how he had done it. They only knew that he had broken through. Hence, many Dragon Emperor experts from other dragon countries came to Yen Dragon City as guests to visit Dragon Emperor Yen. This made Dragon Emperor Yen unable to leave for a while. Kang Xinmu could only find those talented dragon warriors himself. This depended on the Black Dragon consciousness in Kang Xinmu's mind. The Black Dragon consciousness was willing to help Kang Xinmu in this aspect. After all, whether it wanted to occupy Kang Xinmu's body or not, Kang Xinmu could build a force of his own, which was definitely not bad for it. And the Black Dragon consciousness's ability was amazing. Even the demon god ancestor's consciousness felt ashamed of its inferiority. This Black Dragon's consciousness was able to scan almost all living beings in a large area. It could mark out all those whose blood essence compatibility reached 60, allowing Jiang Shenwu to know. This was the most terrifying weapon for Kang Xinmu's plan to find people. On the first day, Kang Xinmu set off with Xiao Bai to search within 1,000 miles of Yen Dragon City. The range of the Black Dragon's consciousness wasn't too vast. Jiang Shenwu only took a full day to explore this 1,000-kilometer radius. But it was a pity that during this whole day, Kang Xinmu did not find any talented young man or girl with blood compatibility above 60. After all, it was near Yen Dragon City. As long as the dragon warriors showed some talent, they could basically get good cultivation resources to cultivate, so there would not be any fish that slipped through the net. Moreover, it was not so common to have blood compatibility above 60 in the dragon god world. It should be known that Gu Xinyue was only 62. So Kang Xinmu was not in a hurry. Not finding anything on the first day did not mean that the dragon martial continent really did not have such talented dragon warriors. For a period of time, Kang Xinmu went out with others to search every day. On the first day, he brought Xiao Bai, and on the second day, he brought Ran Ran. Every day after that, he would bring one person with him, while the others stayed in Yen Dragon City to cultivate. Although he had not found a genius that he was satisfied with, it was still necessary to bring someone. Of course, the search mainly relied on the black dragon consciousness in Kang Xinmu's body. But the person he brought could appear with Kang Xinmu after finding the target, so that the other party could follow him. If it was only one person, Kang Xinmu thought it was a little strange. On the fourth day, Kang Xinmu's search range had expanded to 100,000 miles around Yen Dragon City. Many places around Yen Dragon City were forests and wilderness, so there was no need to search these areas. Kang Xinmu only needed to search the places where the dragon warriors gathered, such as the area where the Jiang clan lived. This was also the scope of Kang Xinmu's search. At this speed, it would take at least 10 days to search the entire Yen Dragon Emperor Empire. This made Kang Xinmu sigh. This kind of search was too difficult. However, the Black Dragon consciousness said that it was because Kang Xinmu was too weak. If Kang Xinmu's cultivation realm was higher, the Black Dragon consciousness would be able to search a larger area. This made Kang Xinmu feel somewhat helpless. He also wanted to break through his cultivation realm, but it was not something that could be done in a short period of time. Kang Xinmu roughly estimated that he could at most break through one cultivation realm before the 10 major races arena battle in 3 months, allowing himself to reach the 6th level of the reincarnation realm. If he could defeat 2 reincarnation behemoths, it would be a great improvement for Kang Xinmu. He would almost reach the level of an ordinary peak reincarnation realm expert. If Kang Xinmu could break through to the 7th level of the reincarnation realm, his improvement in cultivation realm would surpass that of an ordinary peak reincarnation realm expert. At that time, Kang Xinmu would truly be invincible in the same realm. He could even defeat opponents who were several levels above him. However, no matter how Kang Xinmu calculated and combined it with the time he needed to consolidate his strength, he felt that it would take at least half a year for him to reach the 7th level of the reincarnation realm. In the next 3 months, he could only break through once. Otherwise, it would be too difficult to consolidate his strength, which would not be very beneficial to his future cultivation. Moreover, if he wanted to break through in a short period of time, the amount of cultivation resources needed would increase exponentially. No matter how rich Kang Xinmu was, he could not waste it like this. On the 9th day of the search, Jiang Shenwu came to an area near the borders of the Flame Dragon Empire to conduct a search. Today, the person who came with him was Liang Xiao. Kang Xinmu now had many tricks up his sleeves. He brought Liang Xiao with him and used the instant magic ring to travel through space. It would only take an instant for him to travel from Yen Dragon City to the edge of the Yen Dragon Emperor's territory. However, Kang Xinmu still pretended to use the wind shadow flowing cloud flash in front of others to travel directly. In this border area, there were many dragon warrior tribes belonging to the Yen Dragon Emperor's territory. Their living and development environment was rather difficult, because the cultivation resources were much less than in other areas. Kang Xinmu still remembered that he could find some wild cultivation resources near the Jiang tribe. However, in this area, it was impossible for any wild cultivation resources to exist. It was not because there were many competitors, but because of the harsh environment. There were no natural treasures growing here. Therefore, the overall strength of the dragon warrior tribe that developed here was slightly weaker than that of the other regions. As for relocation, they also wanted to move to an area with more resources, but which areas with more resources were not occupied by other tribes? Chapter 4780. Therefore, the dragon warrior tribes in this area were generally weaker in terms of overall strength. But Kang Xinmu did not let go of this area. Just as he had thought from the beginning, the weak dragon warriors were likely due to a lack of cultivation resources, not a lack of talent. Once a true dragon warrior genius was found and given a certain amount of cultivation resources, they could easily rise. Of course, the most important thing for the dragon warrior geniuses that Kang Xinmu wanted to subdue was their character. If their character was not good, no matter how high their cultivation talent was, Kang Xinmu would not want to accept them into his faction. Kang Xinmu and Liang Xiao came to a mountain peak together. There were 2 dragon warrior tribes in the vicinity of this mountain peak. They had been competing with each other for many years. There were not many cultivation resources in this area to begin with. In order for their tribes to rise as soon as possible, the competition between the 2 dragon warrior tribes had become even more intense. Coming to the mountain peak, Kang Xinmu and Liang Xiao temporarily settled down. Hey, there seems to be a pretty good genius nearby. For the first time in 10 days, Kang Xinmu showed a surprised expression. The black dragon's consciousness told him that in the nearby dragon warrior tribe, there was a genius with a divine dragon blood essence compatibility of 66. However, this genius's situation was not very good. He seemed to be in a state of serious injury. Moreover, the black dragon's consciousness detected that this genius's cultivation level was only at the dragon ascension realm. As for the divine dragon blood essence grade, it was at the sky dragon. A sky dragon blood essence grade was already a relatively strong initial existence. In such a remote area, this genius must have been recognized as a genius by the surrounding dragon warriors. But the lack of cultivation resources made it extremely difficult for him to break through to the next realm and the grade of his blood essence. To the dragon warriors in this area, the cultivation realm was the most important way to improve, not to raise the grade of the divine dragon blood essence. It was similar to the Jiang clan in the past. Very few people could obtain cultivation resources that contain dragon mark energy, and thus attempt to raise the grade of the divine dragon blood essence. The most important thing was to raise their cultivation level and increase their strength. Only at the dragon ascension realm, he looks like a little guy. Kang Xinmu narrowed his eyes and thought to himself. Liang Xiao scratched his head and asked with some doubt, Xinwu, I still don't know what you rely on to find geniuses. And how can you be sure that they are geniuses? Regarding Kang Xinmu's ability to directly see the compatibility, Kang Xinmu had not told Liang Xiao. Now, the only ones who knew this were Ran Ran, Xiao Yuhua, and Xiao Bai. Jiang Xinwu glanced at Liang Xiao, thinking that this guy was really pitiful. He had been with Xiao Yuhua and Ran Ran for so long, yet he still didn't know about this. Those 2 girls were really tight-lipped, they didn't tell Liang Xiao anything at all. Kang Xinmu didn't want to hide it from Liang Xiao, but he didn't ask, so Kang Xinmu didn't say anything. Now that he had said it, Kang Xinmu smiled and explained, I can directly see the compatibility of a dragon warrior's divine dragon blood. Although I don't know why, I just know it, and it's very accurate. Liang Xiao's face was full of excitement. Then how much do you think I have? Didn't Ran Ran tell you? Your compatibility is 58. Kang Xinmu said with a smile. Damn it. Liang Xiao was so scared that he almost peed his pants. I'm only at 58. Then you're saying that the genius dragon warriors you're looking for have a compatibility of more than 60? Doesn't that mean even I can't compare to them? Don't worry. When you reach the 8th level of the Dragon Emperor, I will help you. Kong Shinmu's lips curled up slightly, but he didn't say anything else. Kong Shinmu hadn't told anyone that he could help people break through bottlenecks, so there was no need for Liang Xiao to tell him for the time being. Anyway, he would help when the time came. Let's go. Let's see the situation of that so-called genius kid. Kong Shinmu brought Liang Xiao with him. He didn't transform into a dragon, but instead flew towards the tribe in human form. They didn't want to cause too much of a commotion in the area, so there was no need to transform into a dragon. Besides, by hiding their auras, the dragon warriors in the area wouldn't be able to sense their strength. Yen Dragon Emperor Dynasty, Li Tribal Clan. This was a very poor tribe, but the dragon warriors of this tribe were still working hard to survive and improve themselves. After all, the surrounding tribes of the Li Tribal Clan were just as poor as them, so they couldn't get any good cultivation resources. As a result, many of the dragon warriors from the Li Tribal Clan and the surrounding tribes would head outside to complete their training and obtain more cultivation resources. Unfortunately, the dragon warriors of these tribes would be despised by others outside. Their battle strength would be lower than others of the same level, because they didn't have enough cultivation resources to supplement them. In this world, the strong would always be strong, and the weak would always be weak. There was no logic to it. And this year, the Li Tribal Clan had produced a genius, Li Xian. Li Xian had just obtained the Divine Dragon's inheritance blood essence from the Divine Dragon Totem. It was a heavenly dragon's inheritance blood essence. This was not a small matter in this remote area. After all, the number of dragon warriors who were heavenly dragons from the start was still very small. Even the Li Tribal Clan's patriarch only had the blood essence of a true dragon. Only his cultivation level had reached the Nirvana Tribulation Realm. It wasn't that the tribes in this area didn't have any dragon warriors at the Nirvana Tribulation Realm, but once someone reached the Nirvana Tribulation Realm, they would definitely not stay in this small place, at this time, in the Li Tribal Clan square. Around the square were towering stone pillars and some stone buildings. They looked shorter than the other buildings. It could be seen that they were the grandest buildings built with the least amount of resources. In the middle of these buildings, a youth was being beaten up. This youth was bare-chested, with short hair and a determined expression. His upper body was covered with scars that looked like they had been cut by knives. He was beaten to the ground, but his eyes were still filled with determination. Li Xian, this is the first time, and I hope it's the last. Our Wang tribal clan does not wish to see you pester our young miss again. The youths that were beating him didn't look young. They were at least older than Li Xian, in their 30s. As for Li Xian, he was only 17 years old. He had just obtained the Divine Dragon's blood essence last year. These youths seemed to be from the neighboring Wang tribal clan. Li Xian and the young miss of the Wang tribal clan had some friendship, which made these youths unhappy. So they had charged into the Li tribal clan to teach him a lesson. And these youths were existences at the divine martial realm. They were not people that Li Xian could contend with. Chapter 4781. After the group of youths gave their warning, they turned around and left. Li Xian climbed up with some difficulty. His whole body felt like it was falling apart. There was pain coming from every part of his body, but his face was still calm and determined as if nothing had happened. Just as he stood up, he suddenly realized that two people had appeared in front of him. He had never seen these two people before. They were two young men, and they seemed to be dragon warriors. In fact, Li Xian was a genius of the Li tribal clan. He had come into contact with many powerful dragon warriors. Previously, the Li tribal clan's patriarch had brought Li Xian to meet the city lords of nearby cities, so he had seen many big scenes. He knew how powerful the dragon warriors were. And now, looking at the two youths in front of him, he felt that the two young dragon warriors were very strong. As to how strong they were, Li Xian did not know. And he found it strange because he had never seen such a young and powerful dragon warrior. How strong could such a young dragon warrior be? Who are you? Li Xian suddenly asked in a deep voice. He did not know the two young dragon warriors in front of him. Who knew if they were friends or foes? If they were friends, then there was no problem asking this question. But if they were enemies, then Li Xian had to be prepared for battle. The two young dragon warriors were naturally Kong Xinmu and Liang Xiao. Kong Xinmu did not say a word. He only nodded at Liang Xiao, allowing him to speak. Liang Xiao did not know what to say, so after some thought, he suddenly asked, "What's your name?" "My name is Li Xian." Li Xian felt that the two of them were very strong, so he was temporarily obedient. "Li Xian, when you were being beaten, why didn't you transform into a dragon to fight back?" Liang Xiao asked. "If I transform into a dragon, they would also transform into a dragon. I can't beat them, so I might as well take a beating." Li Xian told the truth. "Honest man." Liang Xiao laughed, "But indeed, you can't beat them." "Why would they beat you?" "They are from the neighboring Wang tribal clan. The young miss of the Wang tribe, Wang Yu, has a good relationship with me, but she will soon be betrothed to young city lord Yu Badeo of the outer city." Li Xian clenched his fists and said, I didn't want to see her walk into a tiger's mouth, but the Wang tribal clan is too overbearing. I only met Wang Yuer once, and they came to the Li tribal clan to beat me. If not for the experts from the various tribes going out to hunt a fey beast, it wouldn't have ended up like this. Brother, I can see that you are very wronged. Liang Xiao chuckled, "You like Wang Yu, Hearing his question, Li Xian immediately blushed and waved his hand. No, it's just that as a friend, Sai, just say it if you like it." "Xinwu, what do you think?" Liang Xiao turned around and asked Kong Xinmu. "Since we want Li Xian to be one of us, then we will naturally help him when he encounters something." Kong Xinmu smiled. "Alright, leave it to me then." Liang Xiao felt as if his entire body was boiling. Not to mention this remote tribal region, even in the entire Yen Dragon Emperor territory, there was no one who could contend against him. Now that the Yen Dragon Emperor had reached the 5th level of the Dragon Emperor, he might be able to contend against Liang Xiao, but it was impossible for others. Hence, Liang Xiao could do whatever he wanted in this region. "You want to help me?" Li Xian was momentarily stunned. When Kong Xinmu said that they were one of us, what help? This confused him. What was going on? Who were these two people in front of him? They looked strong, but no matter how strong they were, they shouldn't be as strong as the older generation experts, right? Liang Xiao walked forward and patted Li Xian's shoulder. "Let's go. Bring me to that Wang tribal clan." "Right, those guys from before haven't gone far. I'll help you teach them a lesson." After saying that, without waiting for Li Xian to say anything, Liang Xiao had already rushed out. He flew straight in the direction that the youths from the Wang tribe had left. He did not even transform into a dragon warrior, but flew straight into the sky. Li Xian's face was blank. This guy really went to deal with those youths? He looked quite strong, but why didn't he transform into a dragon? What if he ran over and got beaten up in one wave? Soon, a few dragon roars could be heard from the horizon. It was obvious that the Wang tribal clan youths had finally transformed into dragons and were fighting Liang Xiao. But soon, the dragon roars faded. Following that, Li Xian saw a shocking scene. They saw that Liang Xiao did not even transform into his divine dragon form. He was completely in human form, but he was able to use his blood-red dragon blood to bind the 5 dragon warriors that were hundreds of feet long. He then dragged them towards the Li tribal clan square. This scene was simply an otherworldly wonder. Suppressing 5 divine dragons in human form? It was too terrifying. Li Xian was scared out of his wits. What sort of person was this, to suddenly appear in front of him and suddenly say that he wanted to help? He ran over and grabbed the 5 youths that had just beaten him up. Those 5 youths had not been able to escape after transforming into dragons. This? With a loud bang, the 500s of feet-long divine dragons were thrown down from the sky by Liang Xiao, crashing heavily into the Li tribal clan square. Li Xian looked at the 5 divine dragons' dispirited appearance and was completely dumbfounded. The surrounding Li tribal clan commoners also came out of their houses and pointed at the scene. They had never seen such a scene before. There was actually someone with such terrifying power. This young man, who looked so young, was actually able to control the 5 divine dragons directly. It was simply unimaginable. It was these 5 guys who bullied you, right? Liang Xiao calmly dragged the 5 divine dragons and flew back. His entire body was surrounded by the dragon blood talent power, and he looked like a blood-colored demon god. The 5 divine dragons behind him looked like minions. The 5 youths had transformed into divine dragons. 2 of them were true dragons and 3 were ordinary dragons. They were all existences at the divine martial realm. For Liang Xiao, even without transforming into a dragon, he could easily crush the 5 with only 30% of his strength. He returned with the 5 divine dragons and landed on the square. This made the Li tribal clan's Li Xian shocked. You are actually that strong? Li Xian could not believe the scene in front of him. It was completely unheard of. It's all right. Liang Xiao laughed, as long as you follow us, you will be as strong as me in the future. After all, Divine Marshal said that you have good talent and are qualified to join our Devouring Dragon group. Chapter 4782. Devouring Dragon Group? When Li Xian heard this name, he felt a little confused. He was more interested in what Liang Xiao had said, that he could be as strong as Liang Xiao in the future. You're saying that my talent is not bad, and I can join you? Li Xian was not too excited, but vigilant. What kind of faction is your Devouring Dragon group? Don't tell me you're from outside the Yen Dragon Emperor's dynasty? That, I can answer you. Kang Xinmu smiled and said, I'm from the Yen Dragon Emperor's dynasty. The Devouring Dragon Group's headquarters is in Yen Dragon City. But if we're talking about belonging, the Devouring Dragon Group doesn't belong to anyone in the entire Dragon Martial continent. If we're talking about belonging, it belongs to me alone. Right, if you join the Devouring Dragon Group, your stage will not be limited to the Dragon Martial continent. I believe you should know by now that the Dragon Martial continent isn't the entire world, right? This was something that even the dragon warriors of the Li tribal clan had heard of. This was because the matter regarding the 9 major races had become too big of a ruckus. Li Xian nodded and said, I know. In the past 2 years, it said that even the Yen Dragon Emperor has gone outside the continent to defend against the enemies. It's a pity that I'm not strong enough, or I would really like to go outside the continent to defend against the foreign races. Now, you've gotten such a chance. Liang Xiao walked forward and patted him on the shoulder. He smiled and said, how about it, do you want to join us? Join. I want to join, but our Li tribal clan needs me. Wang Yuer also needs me. I can't leave yet. Li Xian gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. He raised his head and looked at the 5 dragon warriors that were controlled by Liang Xiao. He felt a sense of anger. However, he also felt a sense of powerlessness. He had just become a dragon martial artist not long ago, and his divine dragon blood essence had just awakened. There was no way for him to compete with those dragon martial artists. Now that Wang Yuer was being forced to marry Yubadeo, he had the urge to vomit blood out of anger. You can solve this matter by yourself. Kang Xinmu pondered for a moment and said, in the next few days, I will give you some cultivation resources to raise your cultivation level. Of course, the most important thing is to raise the grade of the divine dragon's blood essence. Do you think that if you break through to the divine martial arts realm and your blood essence reaches the level of a divine dragon, will you be able to solve your current predicament? Divine martial arts realm? Divine dragon? When Li Xian heard this sentence, he was stunned on the spot. He could imagine the divine martial realm. After all, he was already at the 7th level of the ascending dragon realm, not far from the divine martial realm. But the key was, the divine dragon? It was extremely difficult to raise the grade of a divine dragon's blood essence. If not, the Li tribal clan's patriarch would not have inherited the blood essence of a true dragon. Which devouring dragon core did this young man in front of him come from? How could he possess the inheritance blood essence that could allow him to break through to the level of a sacred dragon? You guys, could it be that you're scammers? Li Xian said with some doubts. Huh. Liang Xiao and Kang Xinmu could not help but laugh. Indeed, for a dragon warrior in such a remote region, their words were indeed unbelievable. It wasn't a big problem for Li Xian to be suspicious. Instead, it showed that Li Xian was able to control himself when faced with benefits or temptations. He would not lose his ability to think. This was something that Kang Xinmu appreciated. Alright. That matter, is it urgent now? If it's urgent, I can help you solve it first. Kang Xinmu smiled and said, it's the matter of Wang Yue that you mentioned. A young girl being forced into marriage, even if it was Kang Xinmu, he would usually intervene. After all, he could easily change someone's life. Not to mention that this matter was something that Li Xian was very concerned about. Li Xian heard this and immediately said, 7 days later, Wang Yue will be forced to marry Yubadeo. During this period of time, Wang Yue has been sent to the outer city. There won't be any danger for the time being. Seniors, that Yubadeo has inherited the blood essence of a sky dragon. Furthermore, he is at the 4th level of the divine martial realm. He's very strong. It's fine. Kang Xinmu squinted his eyes and said, in 7 days, I can let you reach the level of a divine dragon's inherited blood essence. At that time, you will personally deal with Yubadeo. As for the others who want to stop you, we will take responsibility. You just focus on improving your strength and cultivating. Li Xian was still a little skeptical. Next, Liang Xiao gave the 5 young men, who had transformed into divine dragons, a good beating. The 5 divine dragons' heads were all bruised and swollen. It could be said that they were in an extremely miserable state. After that, Liang Xiao threw them into the deep mountains thousands of zhang away. Scram! With Liang Xiao's words, the 5 youths did not dare to stay any longer. They immediately dragged their injured divine dragon bodies and fled into the distance. Following that, Kang Xinmu and Liang Xiao did not wait for the surrounding Li tribal clan members to approach. They directly brought Li Xian and left the area. The 3 of them flew all the way to the nearby deep mountains. Here, this deep mountain is Old Demon Demonic Ape's lair. What are we doing here? Soon, Li Xian began to tremble. Old Demon Demonic Ape? What level is that fey beast? Kang Xinmu squinted his eyes as he asked. It seems to be a peak sky fey. Anyway, our tribes do not dare to provoke it, Li Xian replied. It's fine. Kang Xinmu shook his head and said, we just want to find a quiet place for you to cultivate. I hope that no blind things will come and disturb us. Soon, they landed at the bottom of a canyon. They could sense the auras of some demonic beasts in the surroundings. However, these demonic beasts were very weak. Upon sensing Jiang Shenwu and Liang Zhao's auras, they all fled without a trace, not daring to come close at all. Liang Xiao, go and guard the surroundings. In these 7 days, I will train Li Xian here. After Kong Xinmu said this to Liang Shao, he took out a jade of dragon mark that he had bought in the dragon god race's great world. This jade of dragon mark contained an extremely rich dragon mark energy. For a dragon emperor like Kong Xinmu, such a jade of dragon mark was nothing. But for a sky dragon level dragon warrior, the dragon mark energy contained in the jade of dragon mark was enough for them to break through to the sacred dragon level of inheritance blood essence. Li Xian was one of them. Li Xian's divine dragon blood essence was originally a high-level sky dragon. His talent was quite terrifying. As long as he absorbed the dragon mark energy in the jade of dragon mark, he could directly break through to the sacred dragon level. What is this? Li Xian did not even know what the dragon mark energy was. Of course, he did not know what the jade of dragon mark was. Chapter 4783. 7 days. With the help of Kong Xinmu, Li Xian began to absorb the energy of the dragon mark in the jade of the dragon scar. Just as he began to absorb, Li Xian could clearly feel the changes in his body. The divine dragon blood essence in his body quickly boiled, and after integrating with the energy of the dragon mark, it rapidly became stronger and stronger. From a sky dragon to a sacred dragon, this was a very important process. Once the transformation was completed, the body of a divine dragon would grow from 100 feet to 300 feet, which was an extremely obvious change. It could be said that in this remote area, once a sacred dragon-level dragon martial artist appeared, it would definitely shock everyone. Once Li Xian became a sacred dragon, he would be the strongest person within a radius of several hundred miles. Of course, his cultivation realm was not too high, but this did not affect him much. In a one-on-one fight, unless it was an older generation dragon martial artist who had reached the Nirvana Tribulation realm, no one could be his opponent. As for Ubadeo, it was even more impossible. A mere sky dragon at the 4th level of the true martial realm had almost no ability to resist in front of a sacred dragon. 6 days passed quickly. In these 6 days, Li Xian constantly absorbed the energy of the dragon mark in the jade of the dragon scar, and the level of his divine dragon blood essence continued to increase. Under the tempering of the dragon mark energy, he continued to burst out with even more terrifying aura and power. This made the surrounding demon beasts even more afraid to come close. As for Liang Shao, he was playing with some demon beasts in the surroundings, picking peaches and playing with monkeys every day. He was simply having fun. Finally, after the end of the 6th day, Li Xian's entire divine dragon body had undergone a transformation. Like Liang Shao, his innate ability was the power of the dragon blood. This kind of power could be stimulated by the method of detonation, and it was an extremely powerful innate ability. Therefore, Liang Shao directly taught him the dragon martial skill that he cultivated. For the time being, Li Xian would definitely not be able to cultivate it, but there was no harm in teaching it first and letting him study it himself. Before the Nirvana Tribulation realm, it was relatively easy to raise one's cultivation realm. Kong Xinmu also directly gave him some cultivation resources, which allowed Li Xian's cultivation realm to break through to the 1st level of the true martial realm. His blood-red divine dragon body soared in the air. His body was more than 300 feet long, and it was earth-shattering. Li Xian never expected that he would really encounter such a great opportunity and meet a legendary figure. Moreover, the two of them clearly looked so young. Was there really someone with such terrifying talent in the dragon martial continent? In response to Li Xian's shock, Kong Xinmu and Liang Shao also comforted him. They said that Li Xian's talent was actually quite good. It was just that his background had led to a lack of cultivation resources. Otherwise, he wouldn't have the strength he had now. After becoming a divine dragon, Li Xian needed to consolidate his strength. In just one night, Li Xian had almost mastered his current strength. This speed of consolidating his strength surprised Kang Xinmu. One must know that consolidating strength is the hardest part. For many dragon martial artists in the great world of dragon gods, they were often stuck on consolidating their strength. And Li Xian seemed to have a natural advantage and talent in this aspect. I think we can let him try killing that old devil ape first. Liang Xiao suddenly ran back and said, I checked that old demonic ape and found that he is just a small sky demon, but his cultivation is at the peak of god martial arts realm. No one dares to provoke such a sky demon in this remote area. Kang Xinmu said with a smile, isn't this very normal? The dragon martial artist tribe here, even the patriarch is only a true dragon at the peak of nirvana tribulation realm. The true dragon's inherited blood essence is a far cry from that of a sky demon. If they really fought, the patriarchs of these tribes might be able to deal with that old devil ape. But it would definitely not be a crushing defeat, and they might even be injured. As the patriarch of a tribe, of course, he couldn't easily go to battle. If there was an accident, the situation would become somewhat serious, and the entire tribe might even be swallowed up. And there was no benefit in killing old devil ape. Over time, of course, no one would do such a strenuous and unrewarding thing. And now, Liang Zhao's suggestion was not bad. They could let Li Xian deal with that old devil ape first to practice. Of course, old devil ape was at the peak of the divine martial realm, and was about to step into the nirvana tribulation realm. Compared to Li Xian, his strength was still relatively stronger. So, Liang Zhao's idea was to let Kang Xinmu control old devil ape and suppress him, and then let Li Xian kill him. This point was agreed upon by Kang Xinmu. Alright, then let's deal with that old devil ape first. Kang Xinmu nodded, and directly brought Li Xian to the location that Liang Xiao had detected old devil ape's location. This desolate forest was extremely vast, and there were many fey beasts living there. But due to the lack of resources, there were not many strong fey beasts. Old devil ape was already considered the strongest fey beast. It was said that he had fey beasts known as the 4 great fey generals. This time, the experts of the Li tribal clan, Wang tribal clan and other tribes were dispatched together, mainly to destroy the 4 great fey generals. This was mainly for the sake of fighting over a mine vein. Some of the ores produced by the mine vein were not of much use to these few tribes, but those ores were one of the main materials for forging dragon weapons, so they could be used to exchange for some cultivation resources. In this area where cultivation resources were scarce, the function of the mineral vein was too important. As for the fey beasts, they clearly had no use for the mineral vein, but they still wanted to snatch it from the tribes. They must have had nothing better to do. Since they could not chase them away, they could only try to chase them away. Where are we going? Li Xian was brought by Kang Xinmu, flying in the direction of old devil ape's location. He was still a bit confused, not knowing what he was going to do. This direction, wasn't it the direction of returning to the Li tribal clan? I'll help you suppress old devil ape's strength to 30%, then you can go kill him. In fact, even if old devil ape's strength was suppressed, his body was still very strong. It would be extremely difficult for Li Xian to kill him, but as long as old devil ape could not kill Li Xian, it was enough. This could also be used to train Li Xian. What? Old devil ape? Hearing Kang Xinmu's words, Li Xian jumped in fright. His body trembled. Wasn't this too unreal? Old devil ape was an existence that could compete with the Li tribal clan's patriarch. He had only broken through to the sacred dragon level, yet he was being brought to deal with old devil ape. Wasn't this too arrogant? Chapter 4784. In fact, what Li Xian didn't know was that the grade of the divine dragon's blood essence could be said to be decisive in improving a dragon warrior's strength. Especially at Jiang Shenwu's current level, all dragon martial artists could reach the upper levels of the reincarnation tribulation realm. Therefore, what determined a dragon martial artist's combat strength was the grade of the divine dragon's blood essence. At the true dragon, sky dragon, and sacred dragon stages, the improvement of the divine dragon blood essence in a dragon martial artist's body was enough to cause an earth-shattering change. It was enough to increase their combat strength by several times, or even more than 10 times. Seeing that Li Xian didn't believe him, Kang Xinmu said, "A sky dragon of the same level can fight 10 true dragons. Have you ever tried it?" Li Xian was dumbfounded. "No, I've always faced opponents in the true martial realm. I've never met an opponent in the same level. Those juniors in the same level as me don't dare to fight me at all. In other tribes, it's those in the true martial realm who come to bully me." Hearing this, Liang Xiao couldn't help but laugh. "Brother, you're too pitiful. You actually haven't fought an opponent in the same level? Then remember, when you were in the Sky Dragon level, you could easily fight 10 true dragon inheritors in the same level." Kang Xinmu continued, "Now that you've become a sacred dragon, you can easily fight 10 Sky Dragon inheritors in the same level. It's the same even if it's a Sky Demon. Old Demon Devil Ape is a Sky Demon, and his cultivation has reached the peak of the true martial realm. For the original you, it was indeed impossible to defeat him. But now, we've suppressed his strength to 30%. You still have the ability to fight him. Of course, as long as you can resist his attacks, you don't have to kill him. For you, it won't be that easy to kill him since you haven't cultivated any powerful dragon skills." Li Xian nodded his head doubtfully. Of course, he had a clear understanding of his current strength. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to consolidate it so quickly. He just didn't know enough about Old Demon Devil Ape's strength. He had always heard that Old Demon Devil Ape was a powerful sky demon, the king of the nearby monsters. Even the tribe leader didn't dare to deal with him. Therefore, this gave Li Xian the illusion that he couldn't deal with Old Demon Devil Ape. He always felt that the other party was an existence that far surpassed him. In fact, if there was no Kang Xinmu, Li Xian would have to wait for at least another 10 years before he could reach the level where he could deal with Old Devil Ape. Of course, if he could leave this tribe and go to the outside world, he might be able to obtain more opportunities and advance this time. However, no matter what, Jiang Shenwu's arrival had allowed Li Xian to improve tremendously in just a short 7 days. Originally, he would have needed to spend 10 years of hard work before he could take such a huge step forward. Soon, Li Xian saw a black whirlwind appearing at the peak of a mountain in front of him. The black whirlwind was like a tornado, sweeping up to the peak of the mountain. 2 huge glowing eyes looked in their direction. On Kang Xinmu's side, the 3 of them did not transform into their divine dragon forms. They looked like little birds that could be completely ignored. However, the creature in the whirlwind at the top of the mountain seemed to have sensed that the 3 of them were unusual. Roar! An angry roar came from the top of the mountain. That was the roar of Old Demon Devil Ape. Being shrouded in the black whirlwind, one could not see its body clearly. However, from the roar, one could hear some threat and warning. Obviously, if Kang Xinmu and the others got any closer, Old Demon Devil Ape would have attacked. "Go over, I will help you suppress it." Kang Xinmu nodded at Li Xian and directly threw his body towards the black whirlwind at the peak of the mountain. When Li Xian was thrown into the air, he was a little confused. However, when he felt that he was very close to the black whirlwind, he immediately reacted. The divine dragon blood in his body boiled. Dragon transformation. A blood-red dragon that was around 1000 m tall appeared here, and then it charged directly into the black tornado. The angry roar of Old Demon Devil Ape came from the top of the mountain. However, this old demon did not attack Li Xian. Instead, it turned around and wanted to escape into the distance with the black whirlwind. Demonic beasts had an extremely strong desire to live. Now that someone had come looking for trouble, and 2 of them seemed to be outsiders, Old Demon Devil Ape could feel their terrifying aura even without transforming into a dragon. How could Old Demon Devil Ape dare to stay where he was? He turned around and ran. However, Kang Shinmu did not give him the chance to escape. With a raise of his hand, a wave of devouring power condensed and formed a huge black net that enveloped a large area of the mountain. Old Demon Devil Ape, I'll give you a chance to fight Li Xian. If you can kill him, I won't make things difficult for you. However, if you die at his hands, I won't save you either. Of course, if the two of you are equally matched, I won't kill you either. Whether you live or die will depend on you. Kang Shinmu's voice sounded. The method he used to trap Old Monster Devil Ape was not a dragon martial technique. It was just an ordinary use of the innate ability of devouring. With his current strength, he could completely crush Old Monster Devil Ape. Therefore, even without transforming into a dragon, he could easily trap Old Monster Devil Ape in the giant black net, making it impossible for him to escape. Old Demon Devil Ape's angry roar sounded, as if he was protesting against Kang Shinmu. You have suppressed my strength and can only exert 30% of my strength. How are you going to fight this divine dragon? When Old Demon Devil Ape first discovered that Li Xian turned out to be a divine dragon's inheritance blood essence, he was very frightened, especially when he discovered that his strength had been suppressed to only 30%. However, he soon calmed down. This Old Demon Devil Ape was not an inexperienced little demon. Although his strength was not that great, his judgment of the situation was still very accurate. He could see that the two very strong young dragon martial artists seemed to want this divine dragon to exchange pointers with him, using him to temper the young and inexperienced little divine dragon. Moreover, Old Demon Devil Ape discovered that although the little divine dragon had the inheritance blood essence of a divine dragon, its cultivation level was not high. It was only at the first tier of the true martial realm. This made Old Demon Devil Ape relax. He had not attempted to break through to the Nirvana Tribulation realm because he was not confident in dealing with a Nirvana beast. And now, with the dragon martial artists refining weapons with him, since he could not escape, he could only use his strongest strength. Following that, a black whirlwind erupted and swept towards Li Xian, who had transformed into a blood-colored divine dragon. Li Xian's dragon martial technique was too weak. Although he was very talented, the Li tribal clan did not have any cultivation resources for him. Chapter 4785. On the mountain peak, the blood-red dragon blood's power and the black whirlwind's demonic power were locked in a chaotic battle. During this period of time, Jiang Shenwu maintained a 30% suppression on Old Monster Devil Ape's strength, causing him to only be able to unleash 30% of his own strength. As a result, Li Xian's battle with Old Monster Devil Ape was in full swing. Apart from being a little unfamiliar with his own strength in the beginning, he was slowly able to fight Old Monster Devil Ape to a standstill. Li Xian did not practice any powerful dragon martial techniques. To Kang Shinmu, his dragon martial techniques were useless. It was because the Li tribal clan was too shabby. Just from the consolidation of Li Xian's strength, one could tell that he had an extremely strong cultivation talent. It was a waste for such a genius to be placed in such a place. To discover a Li Xian, it means there are many other similar geniuses. If they were to gather together, it would be a huge force. Kang Shinmu thought in his heart. Originally, Kang Shinmu did not plan on letting Li Xian kill Old Devil Ape. But as the two fought, Li Xian's fighting spirit was aroused. I'll kill you, Old Devil Ape. You killed my third aunt. You killed my fourth uncle. I, Li Xian, will avenge them today. The more Li Xian fought, the more energized he became. Due to his dragon bloodline's innate ability, he possessed an extremely powerful destructive force when he exploded. Therefore, even Old Demon Devil Ape, who had a thick and coarse skin, was having trouble dealing with him. Wounds began to appear on his body. Although his recovery speed was fast, Li Xian's wounds were even faster. Slowly, old devil ape began to lose the strength to resist. This Li Xian is not bad. Liang Xiao watched this scene from the side and could not help but be amazed. Does he have a good relationship with his third aunt and fourth uncle? To avenge them, he actually exploded with such power. Who knows? Kang Xinmu was also dumbfounded. Seeing Li Xian constantly suppressing old devil ape, Kang Xinmu felt that this experience was almost over. Since Li Xian already had the ability to use his strength, there was no need to continue fighting. Li Xian, let's go. Kang Xinmu suddenly spoke. He raised his hand and used his devouring power to form a dragon claw that grabbed Li Xian away from old monster devil ape. Li Xian was fighting enthusiastically, but he didn't expect that he would be taken away. The old demon devil ape was incomparably dispirited right now. Looking at how Li Xian was being taken away, that fella was incomparably enraged as well. Since when had he ever been bullied by someone of the younger generation? As Kang Xinmu brought Li Xian away, the 30% suppression on old demon devil ape's body finally disappeared. This caused old monster devil ape's ferocious nature to erupt, and he charged towards Li Xian in a frenzy, but then, a burst of dragon blood erupted. It was Liang Xiao. He didn't transform into his divine dragon form. Instead, he attacked directly, and the terrifying power directly turned old demon devil ape into ashes. The power of the dragon blood exploded into ripples that spread into the surroundings. Old demon devil ape's enormous body did not have the slightest ability to resist and was directly turned into ashes. Trying to sneak an attack. What a brainless idiot. Liang Xiao sighed. Originally, he did not intend to kill this old devil ape, but since it was seeking death, he could not blame anyone else. Let's go. Kang Xinmu didn't say much as he turned around and left with both of them. At this moment, the expression in Li Xian's eyes had completely changed. He simply couldn't believe what he had just witnessed. Someone as powerful as old demon ape was actually killed by one of these two with just a single move. Not even his dragon form was revealed. It seemed that the strongest espers in this area had yet to reach the level where they could transform into dragons. They were too strong. Li Xian, I only used 1% of my strength just now. Liang Xiao couldn't help but want to show off and proudly said. Powerful, powerful. Li Xian didn't know what to say and could only praise him first. Cough cough. You can also become so powerful in the future. Liang Xiao coughed and said. Together, the three of them headed towards a city outside this area. This city was located outside this desolate forest area. It was the closest city to this desolate forest area. It was jointly called Outer City by several major tribes. In fact, its name was Bing-Mo City. The eldest daughter of the Wang tribal clan, Wang Yu, was forced to marry the young city lord of Bing-Mo City, Yubadeo, in Bing-Mo City. At daybreak, Kang Xinmu brought Liang Xiao and Li Xian to the outskirts of Bing-Mo City. This speed was too fast. It made Li Xian feel like they were traveling as fast as lightning. Usually, it would take them at least 3 days and 3 nights to reach Bing-Mo City from the Li tribal clan, but with Kang Xinmu and Liang Xiao leading them, it only took 1 night. It was godly speed. At the same time, Li Xian was extremely nervous. Today, Wang Yu would be forced to marry Yubadeo. The main reason was that Yubadeo didn't fancy many women. With his status, if he fancied Wang Yu, the Wang tribal clan would naturally make arrangements. Hence, he would receive more cultivation resources from Bing-Mo City. It could be said that to the Wang tribal clan and the Li tribal clan, Bing-Mo City was similar to Dragon Prison City to the Jiang tribal clan. It was a relationship of absolute domination. Hence, Yubadeo's father, who was also the city lord of Bing-Mo City, was an expert at the level of a sacred dragon. He was in existence at the peak of the Samsara realm. Within 1,000 miles, who dared to disobey him? Moreover, he also had control over the distribution of cultivation resources. Whether it was distributed by the higher-ups or produced in the region, it was all distributed by Armament City. Which tribe had more resources and which tribe had less was all decided by Eubudeo's father. If the Wang tribal clan was connected to this, then they would slowly rise in the future. There would be countless benefits. In contrast, Li Xian was a genius who had yet to rise up. His words were nothing. Bing Mo City. When Kang Xinmu arrived at the city, he could not help but narrow his eyes. It was not because the city gave him a feeling, but because the Black Dragon's consciousness was telling him that in Bing Mo City, there was another genius young dragon warrior with a blood compatibility of 65. It was a girl. This made Kang Xinmu think, could it be that Wang Yu? He was too lazy to guess. He brought Liang Xiao and Li Xian and flew towards Bing Mo City, descending towards the central square. Bing Mo City's central square. On this day, it could be said that it was a day of celebration. The young city lord of Bing Mo City, Eubudeo, was about to be engaged to the Wang tribal clan's daughter of heaven. Although she came from the poor Wang tribal clan, the daughter of heaven had just awakened a sky dragon's inherited blood essence. She was a rare genius within 1,000 miles. Such a genius girl was naturally worthy of Eubudeo. Chapter 4786. Armament City's Central Square. The square was filled with guests. The engagement of the Yu family's young city lord, Eubudeo, and the young girl, Wang Yu, had attracted many citizens to attend the banquet. These citizens were basically powerful people. They were at least dragon warriors of the true dragon rank. Only then were they qualified to sit here. Therefore, the other dragon warriors and ordinary people could only watch from afar. The entire central square was occupied by the banquet. It was extremely extravagant. The engagement of young city lord Budeo can be said to be a blessing from the heavens. A blessing from the heavens. That's right. I heard that Wang Yu, comes from the Wang tribal clan. She's a rare beauty. So what if she's a beauty? Most importantly, I heard that Wang Yu, is the most powerful genius of the Wang tribal clan in the past 10 years. Only geniuses are worthy of the domineering young city lord. Otherwise, even if she's beautiful, what use is it? Many of the guests were not stingy with their praises for Eubudeo and Wang Yu. The main reason was to please the city lord of Armament City. He was a super expert of the sacred dragon rank, and he ruled over this area. On the main seat, the bearded holy dragon city lord Yu was chatting merrily with a couple seated below him. It was obvious that he was in a good mood. Moreover, he maintained an incomparably dignified demeanor during the banquet. Casually, he could release a terrifying pressure. Even if he were to casually attack, he could instantly kill most of the dragon warriors present. The city lord of Dragon Prison City was at the level of the Dragon King. However, Armament City was very remote. Therefore, the sacred dragon-ranked city lord Yu was able to dominate the city. Not only could he dominate the city, he could also control the situation within 1,000 miles. Sitting below him was a couple who were chatting with him. They were the parents of the genius girl, Wang Yu, from the Wang tribe. This middle-aged couple was clearly a bit reserved. Moreover, they were completely suppressed by City Lord Yu. They did not dare to say much. In fact, their daughter's marriage was forced. Not only was Wang Yu, unwilling, her parents were also unwilling. However, the Wang tribal clan leader needed such a marriage to consolidate his position. Moreover, City Lord Yu and Eubudeo were too arrogant and despotic. They completely ignored the opposition of their family and directly kidnapped Wang Yu. The patriarch of the Wang tribe was accompanying Yubadeo and chatting at the table. As for Wang Yue, she was also sitting at the table next to Yubadeo. The young girl was wearing a red dress and looked very pure and cute. She was only 17 or 18 years old, but her beautiful eyes were filled with sadness. She wasn't willing to marry Yubadeo. Just by looking at Yubadeo drinking with others with his shirt off, that wild and reckless manner, she could tell that he wasn't the type that Wang Yue liked. At this moment, Wang Yue thought of a young man, Li Xian. She knew that Li Xian liked her, but at this time, Li Xian couldn't help her at all. Moreover, although she didn't have any love for Li Xian, she didn't want Li Xian to come here and cause trouble for her. That would cost him his life. Sigh. The young girl sighed. Her originally pure and adorable face now only had a look of regret. No matter how she thought about it, she couldn't think of any existence that could help her. This made her start to pray in her heart. She hoped that the other experts in the Yen Dragon Emperor's court, no matter if it was the Yen Dragon Emperor or the 12 Yen Dragon envoys, could help. As long as this matter could be transmitted to the Yen Dragon Emperor's court, to the Yen Dragon City, then she would be saved. But, was this possible? This barren area was the border of the Yen Dragon Emperor's court. Separated from the territory of a monster kingdom was another Dragon Emperor's kingdom. In such a remote area, cultivation resources were extremely scarce. It wouldn't attract the attention of any big shots. Otherwise, it wouldn't have developed to such a situation. You are so beautiful. Ha ha ha. Yubadeo had a stocky back and a bear's waist. He was bare-chested and had a burly appearance. But when he said it himself, this was called manly. Women should like men with masculinity. Therefore, he believed that he would soon be able to conquer Wang Yue, and make her willing to be his wife. Yubadeo liked Wang Yue, very much. However, there were many beautiful women like her in the entire Bingmo city. The key was that Wang Yue's cultivation talent was very strong. He felt that only such a talented woman was worthy of him. Hearing Yubadeo's praise, many dragon martial artists began to praise Wang Yue. They said that she was as beautiful as a fairy descending to the earth, and so on. But Wang Yue didn't feel happy at all. Immediately after, Yubadeo was about to move forward and kiss her on the lips. Shut up. Suddenly, a loud shout came from above the central square of Bingmo city. This shout was like a muffled thunder exploding on the ground, resounding in everyone's mind. Everyone was stunned. Then, they raised their heads and looked up into the sky. When they saw the situation in the sky, they couldn't help but be stunned on the spot. What was going on? 3 youths had actually come to Bingmo city to cause trouble? The 3 youths were floating above Bingmo city. 2 of them didn't have any obvious expressions. They looked down into Bingmo city, as if they were inspecting their own territory. As for the last one, it was the youth in an ordinary robe who had shouted, "Shut up! Isn't that Li Xian from the Li tribal clan?" What Li Xian or Zhao Xian, I don't know him. But for the Li tribal clan to dare cause trouble in Bingmo city, does he not want to live? You ask me, how would I know? I'm afraid this kid is really courting death. Many people at the banquet began to talk. Li Xian? Wang Yue saw Li Xian's figure and her face was filled with shock. She never thought that Li Xian would really come to Bingmo city to cause trouble for her. But, what day was this? To cause trouble today, it wasn't something that could be resolved with a beating. It was very likely that he would lose his life here. How dare he come? Although she was touched, Wang Yue's heart was in a mess. She absolutely did not want to see Li Xian beaten to death on the spot. She decided that no matter what, she could not let Li Xian die today, even if she had to stand in front of Li Xian. You know that kid, his name is Li Xian? Young city lord Yubadeo laughed and stood up. Looking at Li Xian above him, his face showed disdain. He could not tell what grade Li Xian's divine dragon blood essence was, nor could he tell Li Xian's cultivation level. But he seemed to have vaguely heard that the Li tribal clan had a Li Xian who had just awakened his divine dragon blood essence. Chapter 4787. Hearing Yubideo's question, Wang Yuer pondered. If she admitted that she knew Li Xian, then it was very likely that Li Xian would be destroyed. Wang Yuer's heart was a little uncomfortable. Why did Li Xian come out to cause trouble? Knowing that this matter could not be solved, he still came out. Wasn't this just looking for trouble? But no matter what, Wang Yuer had to find a way to survive for Li Xian. So she shook her head and said coldly, I don't know him. Young city master, just send someone to drive him away. Today is our engagement day, it is not good to see blood. When these words were said, Yubideo suddenly narrowed his eyes. Don't look at how he looked like, his brain was very sharp. Looking at Wang Yuer's appearance, he knew that Wang Yuer was trying to save someone. She wanted to save someone. Why did she want to save someone? It must be because she knew Li Xian. Since that was the case, he absolutely could not let this Li Xian go. He heard that Li Xian had also awakened the heavenly dragon's divine dragon's blood essence. If he rose in the future, then wouldn't he, Yubideo, face a great enemy? Perhaps even his wife would be taken away by him. So, Yubideo would absolutely not let a future threat exist. He wanted to ensure that he had complete control over Wang Yuer. What Yuer said is right. Yubideo laughed and said, not every Tom, Dick, or Harry is qualified to know my Yuer. The kid in the sky, I will give you a chance. Get lost now, and this young city master can let bygones be bygones. If you are late, then don't blame this young city master for not showing mercy. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone in the surroundings instantly started praising him. Young city master is really benevolent. Someone who came to cause trouble on such a joyous day, if it was me, I would definitely tear him into pieces. What kind of joke is this? Yes, but young city master is young city master after all. Such benevolence, let us see the hope of the future of Armament City. These people were getting more and more excessive, simply praising Yubideo to the sky. But everyone knew what kind of person Yubideo was, it was just that many people would not speak the truth. Perhaps only the 3 people in the sky did not care about Yubideo. This was especially true for Li Xian. His face was filled with disdain when he heard those people's flattery. Now that he had become a member of the Devouring Dragon group, he was completely capable of rescuing Wang Yuer from the fiery pit. In fact, if the city lord of Armament City were to cause trouble, then the city lord would definitely die. Therefore, Li Xian could no longer listen to these false praises. He sneered and said to the crowd below, the munition city belongs to the Yen Dragon Emperor dynasty and is ruled by the Yen Dragon Emperor. If His Majesty Yen Dragon Emperor found out that the city lord's family of Weapon Munition City had kidnapped girls and forced them into marriage, how would he deal with this? This question didn't need to be asked at all. Dragon Emperor Yen was the embodiment of justice and fairness. If Dragon Emperor Yen knew about this, he would definitely help Wang Yuer seek justice. Even City Lord Yu of Armament City would be removed from his position. But, was it possible that the Yen Dragon Emperor knew about this? Ha ha ha. This ignorant child actually used the Yen Dragon Emperor Yen to suppress us. What a joke. The Yen Dragon Emperor is thousands of miles away. How could he know about this? If the Yen Dragon Emperor Yen cares about our matters, then I would like to ask the Dragon Emperor Yen when he will provide us with more cultivation resources. Ha! A group of citizens immediately began to laugh. These citizens were considered the tyrants of Weapon Munition City. They had long been tied to City Lord Yu. Everything was related to them. They did not think that the Yen Dragon Emperor Yen would know about this matter. City Lord Yu was originally sitting on the main seat and was in a good mood. However, after Li Xian came out and said a few words, City Lord Yu's mood turned bad. His face turned cold. You are Li Xian from the Li tribal clan? How bold of you today. And the two behind you, who are they? To dare cause trouble in Weapon Munitions City today, you must be tired of living. His words carried a very serious meaning of threat. If he was angered further, the entirely tribal clan might be removed. Hearing his angry words, a middle-aged man in the city suddenly stood up and shouted angrily at Li Xian in the sky, Li Xian, what the hell are you doing? Quickly come down and kowtow to the city lord and admit your mistakes. If you want to die, don't implicate our Li tribal clan. This middle-aged man was an uncle of the Li tribal clan. His position in the Li tribal clan was in the top 5. Usually, Li Xian would be very respectful to him. However, this uncle didn't expect that Li Xian would come here to cause trouble for Wang Yuer. Wasn't this too much? This was pushing the entire Li tribal clan into a fire pit. Uncle, don't worry. Today, I, Li Xian, came prepared. Li Xian said to his uncle and then looked at City Lord Yu. City Lord Yu, I have invited 2 experts from the Yen Dragon Emperor's court to uphold justice for me and Wang Yuer. Today, Yuer will absolutely not marry Yubadeo, not even an engagement. Everyone present was stunned when they heard Li Xian's words. Even Yubadeo and City Lord Yu felt a chill in their hearts. They were originally curious who the 2 youths behind Li Xian were. From Li Xian's words, they were the 2 experts from the Yen Dragon Emperor's court? This was too unbelievable. They were just 2 youths? But City Lord Yu was a little wary. His face sank. You 2 youths, where did you come from? Today's matter has nothing to do with you. How can it have nothing to do with us? At this moment, Liang Xiao could no longer hold it in. He shook his head and flew out. He said to City Lord Yu, Wang Yuer and Li Xian are people we fancy. We will take them away and at the same time ensure the development of the Wang tribal clan and Li tribal clan. This, is it City Lord Yu? If you are willing to let them go, that's great. But if you don't, then we can have a good discussion. Let them go? Impossible. City Lord Yu immediately sneered, why, even if you are from the Yen Dragon Emperor's court, do you have the right to take my daughter-in-law away? What kind of logic is that? Even if I meet His Majesty, the Dragon Emperor, I will have to talk to him. Is this the rule of our Yen Dragon Emperor's court? Daughter-in-law? Chapter 4788. So that's it? City Lord Yu chuckled, if you, is willing to marry my son, then you have no right to take her away, right? He was still a cunning old fox. He directly threw the ball to Wang Yu. For City Lord Yu, this was the best solution today. The main reason was that he could not determine the identity of the 2 youths behind Li Xian. The key was that he could not sense the strength of the 2 youths. This already showed that the 2 youths definitely had some background. Although it was unlikely that they came from the Yen Dragon Emperor, even if they were a noble young master from a nearby city, they were not people that City Lord Yu could afford to offend. So, he directly took advantage of the fact that the other party had not revealed their identity to let Wang Yu, make a choice. Once the other party's identity was revealed, Wang Yu's choice would be much easier, but now, Wang Yu's face became hesitant. Of course, she did not want to marry Yubadeo, but she could not say it out loud. If she said it out loud, she would offend City Lord Yu and Yubadeo, causing the Wang tribal clan to suffer. She glanced at Li Xian and the others in the sky. Finally, she shook her head and said, I am not willing to marry Yubadeo. That's good. Can we take Wang Yu away? Liang Xiao snapped his fingers and said in a condescending tone. You. Yubadeo could not believe it. He immediately flew into a rage and pounced at Wang Yu-er. Wang Yu-er was already prepared. After all, she was a sky dragon-level genius with inherited blood essence. She was already prepared to avoid it. She immediately dodged, avoiding Yubadeo's pounce. Suddenly, the banquet turned into chaos. Wang Yu-er made such a choice because she followed her heart. She did not wish to be buried in Yubadeo's hands for the rest of her life. Since Li Xian had brought people here, then, she was willing to believe in Li Xian. She knew Li Xian's character. Although this kid was a bit impulsive, he would not mindlessly send himself to death. Since he was here today, he must have some confidence. She would believe him this once. Wang Yu-er dodged Yubadeo's pounce and directly flew into the sky like a dragon. There were also members of the Wang tribal clan present. They were completely stunned. Wang Yu-er's parents, who originally had a sorrowful look on their faces, were now completely stunned on the spot. They didn't know what to say as they watched their daughter fly into the sky. Trying to run? Right at this moment. City Lord Yu sneered. He raised his hand, and a layer of dark clouds appeared and condensed in the sky above Armament City. Then, a series of lightning flashed and formed a lightning cage that enveloped Wang Yuer's 1,000-foot-long divine dragon body. The terrifying power immediately bound Wang Yuer within it. However, City Lord Yu still wanted her to be his daughter-in-law, so he didn't hurt her and only trapped her. Li Xian and the surrounding people jumped in fright. They hurriedly exclaimed, afraid that she would be injured by City Lord Yu. But in the next moment, everyone was shocked. After Wang Yuer was bound by the Thunderbolt cage, her snow-white dragon body disappeared from the Thunderbolt cage in an instant. Then, she appeared behind Li Xian and the other two, floating in mid-air. It seemed that she didn't suffer any attack. Shock. No one realized what had just happened. Wang Yuer had already escaped from City Lord Yu's restraints and was instantly transported into the sky. What's going on? Wang Yuer didn't expect such a thing to happen. The eyes of the entire fairy dragon body were filled with a look of disbelief. Everyone was completely shocked at this moment. The spatial transfer technique was naturally used by Kong Shinmu. How could anyone see it in such a remote area? No one could imagine such a technique. The Yen Dragon Emperor dynasty has established the Devouring Dragon Corps and nurtured elite dragon warriors. At this time, Jiang Shenwu finally stood up. He glanced at the people below and said indifferently, Wang Yuer and Li Xian are now members of the Devouring Dragon Group. From today onwards, the Li tribal clan and Wang tribal clan will be protected. If anyone harms the people of these two tribes, the punishment from the Yen Dragon Emperor will befall. When these words were said, everyone who was completely shocked felt their bodies go numb. The Yen Dragon Emperor dynasty had officially established the Devouring Dragon Corps and wanted to recruit Wang Yuer and Li Xian as members. So that's why. No wonder it was said that the people from the Yen Dragon Emperor dynasty were actually so powerful. With this, who would dare force Wang Yuer to marry Yubadeo? No one dared to do so. Devouring Dragon Corps? Wang Yuer, who had transformed into a fairy dragon, floated behind Kong Shinmu and company. She was also somewhat dumbfounded. She really did not expect that Li Xian could really call such powerful existences over. Of course, she felt that these two youths were not called over by Li Xian. They must have arrived nearby by chance. As for the Devouring Dragon Corps recruiting members to nurture, she believed it. After all, this could explain why the people from the Yen Dragon Emperor dynasty would come to such a remote area. This was something that had never happened before. And she knew that her and Li Xian's talent was definitely at a very good level. Otherwise, it would be impossible for them to be the inheritors of the Sky Dragon's blood essence. By the way, Li Xian had just become a member of our Devouring Dragon Corps and was trained for a month. Liang Xiao suddenly thought of something and didn't leave. Instead, he hooked his finger at Yubadeo below. Yubadeo, I heard that you're very powerful. How about this, you and Li Xian have a duel. If you can defeat Li Xian, let him leave Wang Yue for you. How about that? Hey, you, how can you do this? When Wang Yue heard this, she immediately looked at Liang Xiao angrily. This guy actually used her as a bet. This was simply inhumane. Li Xian also looked a little embarrassed. Instructor Liang Xiao, this is just a duel. Using Yue as a bet isn't appropriate, right? Who told you it's not appropriate? Liang Xiao suddenly scolded. As a member of the Devouring Dragon Corps, you actually have no confidence in dealing with Yubadeo? Even old Demon Ape was completely suppressed by you, right? What are you afraid of? Chapter 4789. What? Even old Demon Devil Ape was completely suppressed by Li Xian? There were quite a number of people who came from the Li tribal clan and the Wang tribal clan. They obviously knew the level of old Demon Devil Ape. He was not an existence that a Tier 1 junior could deal with. They actually said that old Demon Devil Ape was suppressed by Li Xian? That was impossible. Many people in the crowd started whispering to each other. After that, they explained the methods of old Demon Devil Ape to each other. After that, everyone shook their heads in succession. This was absolutely impossible. How could a mere junior deal with old Demon Devil Ape, a heavenly demon at the peak of the true martial realm? Not to mention one-on-one, even 10 Li Xian would not be able to suppress old Demon Devil Ape. In fact, Li Xian's strength was 10 times stronger than before he met Kong Shinmu. But he was only dealing with 30% of old Demon Devil Ape's strength. If he were to face old Demon Devil Ape's full strength, he naturally would not be able to suppress old Demon Devil Ape. So, the people's guess was not wrong. They just did not know that old Demon Devil Ape would be suppressed by Kong Shinmu to only 30% of his strength. Li Xian, you really suppressed old Demon Devil Ape? How is that possible? Wang Yue, who had transformed into a fairy dragon, was completely dumbfounded. She widened her eyes and looked at Li Xian. She wanted to observe his current strength, but no matter how she tried, she could not see through it. It was the two seniors who suppressed old Demon Devil Ape's strength to only 30%, Li Xian said with a bitter smile. Facing Wang Yue, he would not lie. So that's how it is. Wang Yue nodded her head in realization. But she quickly reacted. That's not right. Even if old Demon Devil Ape's strength was suppressed to only 30%, that shouldn't be the case. Li Xian was only at the Dragon Ascension realm. To deal with old Demon Devil Ape who was at the peak of the true martial realm, it was not something that could be done by suppressing his strength to 30%. What exactly happened? Could it be that they were talking nonsense? But it did not look like they were talking nonsense. That Yubadeo, he is not as strong as 30% of old Demon Devil Ape's strength, right? Li Xian could not help but ask in a low voice. I think so. Liang Xiao couldn't detect the difference between people of this level, so he roughly felt it. When he felt that there wasn't much difference, he waved his hand and said, you can just directly agree. This is a chance for you to deal with Yubadeo. Think about it, if you beat Yubadeo half to death in the duel, will City Lord Yu stand up for his son? Once City Lord Yu makes a move, Shenwu and I can help you get rid of City Lord Yu as well. Then, I'll ask Dragon Emperor Yen to send a Dragon King over to Bingmo City. This will be very beneficial to the development of the entire Bingmo City and its surrounding areas. If we don't use this reason, how can we replace City Lord Yu? These words made Li Xian a little hesitant. If that's the case, then aren't we the bad guys? Li Xian was a bit at a loss. It seemed like he was too evil. He actually schemed against City Lord Yu, causing him to lose his position as a city lord, but how could Liang Xiao think that he was doing evil? He sneered and said, "First, to deal with evil people, we naturally have to use evil methods. Will they listen to you if you reason with them? Second, if they are really punished because of this, then it's because Yubideo's cultivation level isn't high enough. If he can beat you, then what reason do we have to deal with his father? Previously, you couldn't beat his father, so you were bullied. I hope that now, you, Li Xian, will not be bullied by Yubideo. If not, even if we want to help you, we won't be able to." With this said, Li Xian suddenly thought of the time when the Li tribal clan's patriarch personally asked City Lord Yu for cultivation resources. He also thought of how Yubideo had attacked Wang Yuer and wanted to be engaged to her, nearly destroying her life. "I'll do it." Li Xian immediately roared and transformed into a blood-red sacred dragon. "Yubideo, get your ass up here and fight me, Li Xian." The moment he transformed into a sacred dragon, a blood-red wind blew in all directions. Following that, the surrounding people looked at his 300-foot sacred dragon body. They were all scared out of their wits. Their eyes widened in disbelief. Sacred dragon? Sacred dragon's body. Li Xian actually had a sacred dragon's body. Especially Li Xian's uncle, the few dragon warriors of the Wang tribal clan, including Wang Yuer's parents and the patriarch, all of them looked like they had seen a god. They could not believe the scene in front of them. Li Xian had inherited the blood essence of a sky dragon. There was no doubt about that. Countless people could testify to that. But in such a short period of time, how did Li Xian become a sacred dragon? This was an existence on the same level as City Lord Yu. To use the sacred dragon's body to deal with Yubideo, even if Yubideo was the young city lord and had considerable strength, he would definitely not be able to withstand it, right? All of this was too terrifying. What had happened today? Could it be that the surrounding area of Armament City was about to change? When City Lord Yu saw this scene, his face became a little gloomy, but soon it became a little desperate. He knew very well how much cultivation resources were needed to go from a sky dragon to a sacred dragon. Not to mention that Li Xian seemed to have achieved such a breakthrough in just a few days. It could be seen that the cultivation resources he obtained were far beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Could such cultivation resources be taken out by the Yen Dragon Emperor? To let people join the Devouring Dragon group to train real genius dragon warriors. Unfortunately, his son Yubideo did not seem to be qualified to join. This was considered normal. Although Yubideo had inherited the blood essence of a sky dragon at the early stage of awakening, he had already consumed a lot of cultivation resources. He was still very far from becoming a sacred dragon, but Li Xian had broken through directly. One could imagine that the difference and gap was too big. "Bideo, let's forget about today's matter," City Lord Yu suddenly said with a sullen face. Although it was very embarrassing, the other party was sent by the Yen Dragon Emperor. Whether it was true or not, it was not something that City Lord Yu could resist. However, Yubideo was not willing to let it go. He looked at the snow-white fairy dragon floating in the sky, and his heart was extremely depressed. Obviously, this beautiful fairy dragon should be his wife, and she was about to become his fiancée. Unexpectedly, Li Xian and the Devouring Dragon group appeared out of nowhere. Although Yubideo knew that he couldn't compete with the other party's force, he wasn't afraid of Li Xian. Even if Li Xian had the blood essence of a sacred dragon, so what? Chapter 4790. Other than the divine dragon's blood essence, a dragon warrior's cultivation level was also crucial. The key was that Li Xian and Yubideo's levels were relatively low, and they were still building their foundations. Hence, the improvement of their cultivation levels was still very considerable, unlike Jiang Shenwu and the rest, who were basically relying on the quality of the divine dragon's blood essence to determine most of their combat strength. So, although Li Xian had become a divine dragon, he did not have much of an advantage when compared to Yubideo's battle power. Hence, Yubideo wanted to give it a try. He said to his father, "City Lord Yu, father, forgive me for not being able to comply today. If I can't defeat Li Xian today, it will be the biggest mental demon of my life. If I don't fight, I'm afraid it will be difficult for me to improve in the future." What he said was right. Today's matter had a great impact on Yubideo, but the main reason was that he did not want to give up on Wang Yuer. He liked this pure genius girl too much, so he had to grab any opportunity. He wanted to challenge Li Xian. A few days ago, Li Xian was definitely defeated by him. If Li Xian had come to Armament City with the Li tribal clan's dragon warriors, he, Yubideo, would not even have given him a glance. But now, he could only look up to him. He did not want to accept this reality. He wanted to prove that he could still crush Li Xian. So, he had to fight this match. Sai, go ahead. City Lord Yu knew his son. Since the other party had stated the conditions, there was no need for him to stop it. Since this battle was just a spar, he believed that even if his son was not Li Xian's match, he would not be killed by Li Xian. So, without any worries, he did not plan on stopping it. City Lord Yu waved his hand. His main focus was on observing Kong Shinmu. His years of experience told him that the leader of this group was Kong Shinmu. This was because Kong Shinmu had not spoken much. On the other hand, Liang Xiao had been communicating with Li Xian. He did not look like the leader. This young man looks too young. Does he really have the power to crush our armament city? Or is it just a certain dragon weapon given by Dragon Emperor Yan? Earlier, he was able to bring that Wang Yu away with a raise of his hand. From this, it can be seen that he is very powerful, or rather, very powerful. Don't become his enemy. City Lord Yu came to a conclusion. In the field, his son Yubideo had already transformed into a black dragon and flew in front of Li Xian. It seemed that the two of them were not on the same level, but Yubideo's aura was clearly much stronger than Li Xian's. This was the difference between the first and the fourth level of the true martial realm. After Yubideo transformed into a dragon, he did not hesitate at all and directly swept towards Li Xian. The violent dragon martial skill transformed into a black whirlwind and enveloped Li Xian. Li Xian was able to consolidate his strength relatively quickly, but after transforming into the body of a divine dragon, he suddenly became several times bigger, so he wasn't quite used to it. The main reason was that when Yubideo attacked, he wanted to dodge. However, his divine dragon body, which was several times bigger than before, made him unable to dodge nimbly. His entire divine dragon body was enveloped by the black whirlwind. However, it seemed that Li Xian had also cultivated the body refining type dragon martial skill, which made Kong Shinmu quite surprised. These days, there were not many people who cultivated the body refining type dragon martial skill. It seemed that Li Xian had already achieved small success in the body refining type dragon martial skill. He had directly received Yubideo's attack, but he did not seem to be injured in the slightest. It was true that Yubideo's strength was not that great. Although the dragon martial skill he cultivated was stronger than Li Xian's, it was not much stronger. Later, I will teach him some dragon martial skill, and his battle power will directly rise. However, the main thing is to directly start from the dragon martial skill. There is no need to cultivate the dragon martial skill below the dragon martial skill. As for the dragon martial skill, one must at least reach the level of the Dragon King in order to comprehend it faster. The Holy Spirit dragon martial skill was the dragon martial skill cultivated by the Dragon Emperor level, and the dragon martial skill was the dragon martial skill cultivated by the Dragon King level. It was not to say that before reaching the Dragon Emperor level, one could not cultivate the Holy Spirit dragon martial skill, nor was it to say that before reaching the Dragon King level, one could not cultivate the dragon martial skill. However, before reaching the corresponding level, the efficiency of cultivation would be extremely low, and it would be more difficult to comprehend the power of the dragon martial skill. Therefore, Kang Xinmu did not intend to teach them the dragon martial skill in the early stages. After they reached the Dragon King level, he would then teach them the dragon martial skill. As for now, Li Xian could only rely on the dragon martial skill that he had already cultivated. Although it was very primitive, when combined with the holy dragon physique that he had achieved, he would no longer be weaker than an ordinary martial artist of the same age. At least within the Yen Dragon Emperor Empire, among the dragon martial artists of the same age, Li Xian's battle power was definitely the strongest. At most, it could only be described as one of. Seeing that Li Xian had actually become a holy dragon, Wang Yuer's eyes also lit up. She really did not expect Li Xian to obtain such a terrifying breakthrough in such a short period of time, but she was faintly worried. She had heard of some evil methods that could allow a dragon martial artist's strength to skyrocket in a short period of time. This devouring dragon group, could it be using some evil methods to allow their strength to skyrocket? Those evil methods were said to be harmful to the body of a dragon martial artist. If they continued to cultivate like this, would they directly be finished in the future? As if seeing Wang Yuer's expression, Kang Xinmu smiled and said, "Wang Yuer, right? You don't have to worry about our devouring dragon group. The area you are in is really too small, and the stage of our devouring dragon group is not only in the Yen Dragon Emperor Empire. Therefore, the cultivation resources that we can obtain are also far beyond your imagination. The Yen Dragon Emperor recently broke through to the 5th level of the Dragon Emperor Empire, and this is all because of my help. And this is all because of my help. As long as you know this, you won't have any doubts about our devouring dragon group." Everything that Kang Xinmu said was naturally the truth. A large part of the reason why the Yen Dragon Emperor was able to break through to the 5th level of the Dragon Emperor Empire was because of the power that Kang Xinmu had imparted to him, which broke through the bottleneck in the Yen Dragon Emperor's body. Therefore, he was able to achieve it so easily. Otherwise, it would have taken him a few years to achieve it. But now, the Yen Dragon Emperor had directly broken through, and this belonged to Kang Xinmu. Kang Xinmu did not think that he was very great, but he could still use it to make Wang Yuer feel at ease. Hearing Kang Xinmu's words, Wang Yuer immediately clicked her tongue. The Yen Dragon Emperor had relied on this black-clothed youth in front of her to break through? Wasn't this too boastful? In any case, Wang Yuer did not believe it. If he really had such ability, wouldn't he have already flown out of the Dragon Martial Continent? Wang Yuer, who was born in a remote area, did not have a specific concept of the Dragon Martial Continent. To her, the Dragon Martial Continent was the entire world that she lived in, and this entire world was made up of the various kingdoms of the Dragon Emperor Empire. If Kang Xinmu could help the Yen Dragon Emperor break through, wouldn't that level be above all the kingdoms of the Dragon Emperor? This was what Wang Yuer was thinking. But this did not prevent her from feeling that Kang Xinmu was very strong. Chapter 4791. Just when Wang Yuer couldn't believe it, the battle between Yubadeo and Li Xian had changed. No matter how powerful Yubadeo's attack was, he couldn't break Li Xian's defense. In other words, he couldn't really kill or seriously injure Li Xian. On the other hand, Li Xian relied on the higher grade of the Divine Dragon's inheritance blood essence to gradually suppress Yubadeo. With a body length of more than 3,000 feet, Yubadeo's entire body was tightly controlled. Purely using his dragon claws to unleash his dragon blood essence, Yubadeo couldn't escape. Kill. When Li Xian thought of how Yubadeo almost ruined Wang Yuer, he couldn't control his anger. Every time he lost his fighting spirit and felt that there was no need to force Yubadeo to his death, he would think of this point, and then hate Yubadeo even more. He would constantly attack Yubadeo. Yubadeo was simply dumbfounded. Although he wanted to marry Wang Yue, he really didn't touch her. If he did, it would be fine. But what was going on in this situation? He really wasn't Li Xian's opponent. Li Xian broke through to the level of Divine Dragon's blood essence, which was already extremely strong. Although Yubadeo wasn't weak and had an advantage in terms of cultivation realm, he had fallen into a disadvantage after a long battle. I admit defeat, Yubadeo directly admitted defeat. Anyway, for him, there was no loss in admitting defeat. At most, it was a loss of face. However, Li Xian acted as if he didn't hear it at all. His dragon blood continued to erupt, exploding around Yubadeo's black dragon body. Soon, Yubadeo's defensive barrier was broken, and his black dragon body began to suffer a real-life threat. No, why aren't you stopping? Seeing this, City Lord Yu suddenly felt bad. However, he didn't directly attack. Instead, he looked at Kong Xinmu and Liang Xiao in the sky. However, Kong Xinmu and Liang Xiao acted as if they didn't see it and ignored him. This made City Lord Yu grit his teeth. Of course, he couldn't watch his son die in front of him, right? Thus, he could only attack. He raised his hand and unleashed his innate ability. However, he did not transform into a dragon to show that he only wanted to save his son and had no intention of going against them. However, but Liang Xiao burst into laughter. City Lord Yu, this is a spar between juniors. What's the matter with you interfering? As his voice fell, Liang Xiao did not transform into a dragon. He raised his hand and executed the dragon blood meteor explosion technique. The innate ability of the dragon blood exploded around City Lord Yu. However, the power of the explosion was concentrated around City Lord Yu and did not affect anyone else in the surroundings. The explosion of this terrifying power directly caused City Lord Yu to be heavily injured. He had inherited the blood essence of a holy dragon and had reached the 4th tier of the Samsara tribulation realm. As for why he didn't have a higher cultivation realm, it was naturally because he couldn't defeat the reincarnation beast in the 5th level with his current combat strength. Liang Xiao just casually made a move and heavily injured City Lord Yu. Ah, he's seriously injured. Liang Xiao did not hide his thoughts at all. Seeing that City Lord Yu was seriously injured, he directly smiled and said, "It seems that the City Lord of Bing Mo City can be changed. Later, I will propose to Dragon Emperor Yan to let him send a Dragon King here." Looking at the citizens of Bing Mo City below who were dumbfounded and had an ugly expression, Liang Xiao continued, "Of course, the Dragon King who comes to take over as the City Lord will definitely bring some cultivation resources and the goal of developing Bing Mo City. This should be a good thing for all of you, right? With the Dragon King as the City Lord, then Bing Mo City would have nothing to do with City Lord Yu and Yubadeo." Yubadeo was still flying in the air while being beaten by Li Xian. When he heard this news, he was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. What? My father is only seriously injured, and they actually want to change the City Lord? What kind of logic is this? This is too disgusting. However, on normal days, Yubadeo had done such things too many times. In fact, he couldn't even count how many such things he had done. Thus, Yubadeo could only vomit blood now. He never thought that such an encounter would befall him. All right, Li Xian, let him go first. Seeing that the situation was almost done, and that City Lord Yu was also seriously injured and vomiting blood crazily, Liang Xiao waved his hand, indicating that there was no need for Li Xian to kill them. This City Lord Yu and Yubadeo, since they dared to be so arrogant, he could just bring them to Yen Dragon City and lock them up for a few years. At that time, with the strength of this father and son pair, they wouldn't be able to set off any waves in Yen Dragon City. As for killing, there was no need to kill this father and son pair. Even if he wanted to kill them, Kong Xinmu and Liang Xiao didn't have the authority to do so. Let Dragon Emperor Yen do it. In short, Yen Dragon Emperor would never allow this father and son pair to do evil again. Thus, after Liang Xiao asked Li Xian to stop, he raised his hand and directly controlled City Lord Yu and Yubadeo, throwing them into the central square of Bingmo City. Then, Kong Xinmu brought Li Xian and Wang Yuer to the square of Bingmo City. Let's stay here for 3 days and wait for Dragon Emperor Yen to send someone over, Kong Xinmu said to Liang Xiao. Liang Xiao nodded and naturally understood Kong Xinmu's meaning. By the way, these 3 days, we can let Li Xian and Wang Yuer continue to cultivate. Time can't be wasted. Kong Xinmu thought for a moment, took out a piece of dragon mark jade, and handed it to Wang Yuer. Wang Yuer, this is a piece of dragon mark jade. It contains the energy of a dragon mark. If you want to improve the grade of divine dragon's blood essence, you mainly need to absorb the energy of the dragon mark. After absorbing this piece of dragon mark jade, you can become a divine dragon like Li Xian. This piece of dragon mark jade isn't poisonous, right? No, it isn't. Wang Yuer asked in a panic. I mean, there shouldn't be any side effects, right? Side effects, you can ask Li Xian if there are any. Liang Xiao smiled, looking at this piece of dragon mark jade. Even I am a little envious. If I had this piece of dragon mark jade in the past, I wouldn't have to suffer so much. This piece of dragon mark jade is commonly used by dragon warriors in the world outside of Dragon Martial Continent. Little beauty, you can rest assured. Having said till here, Wang Yuer took the piece of dragon mark jade. Yuer. Li Xian quickly ran over. I will teach you how to absorb this thing. The dragon mark energy contained in it can make your blood boil. It's amazing. Wait, let me talk to my parents first. Wang Yuer stopped Li Xian from teaching her. It wasn't because she was against Li Xian, but because too many things had happened today. She couldn't react in time. As for her parents, they were still in a daze. Chapter 4792. 2 hours later. Wang Yuer had finally comforted her parents, and Liang Xiao had also explained the situation to Wang Yuer. The surrounding tyrants of Weapon Armament City were all dismissed. Before these people were dismissed, they all ran over to get close to Liang Xiao. It wasn't that they didn't want to get close to Jiang Shenwu, but Jiang Shenwu had always been with Wang Yuer and Li Xian. They didn't even have the chance to come over and talk to him. So they could only try to get close to Liang Xiao. Unfortunately, Liang Xiao treated these people equally, and told them to scram. In any case, when the new Dragon King arrived, he would definitely carry out the will of the Yen Dragon Emperor. He would manage the area around Weapons Munitions City well. Those who had helped City Lord Yu do bad things in the past would not be able to escape. The people gathered in the central square finally dispersed. Only Jiang Shenwu and Liang Xiao, as well as Wang Yuer and Li Xian, as well as about a dozen people from the Li and Wang tribal clans were left. The Li tribal clan's uncle, Li Xian, could not believe it. This was too awesome. Li Xian had been selected to become a member of the Devouring Dragon Corps. It sounded like a powerful army personally nurtured by the Dragon Emperor. This was a genius army. Wouldn't the Li tribal clan prosper in the future? Seeing how Li Xian had broken through to the sacred dragon level in such a short period of time, how great would his future be? In the future, when he flourished, he could return to the Li tribal clan and bring the Li tribal clan away from this resource-scarce region. Even before that, after today's matter, it was certain that there would be a new Dragon King-level expert to manage Weapon Armament City. He would even bring cultivation resources. Although they did not know how many resources the various tribes and tyrants in the city would receive, it was still meat. It would allow them to improve faster. With Li Xian and Wang Yuer becoming members of the Devouring Dragon Corps, the Li tribal clan and Wang tribal clan would definitely be taken care of. Be it the people from the Li tribal clan or the Wang tribal clan, they all felt gratified and happy. Of course, there was one exception, and that was the Wang tribal clan's patriarch. The old patriarch actually kidnapped Wang Yuer to Bingmo City in order to climb up the tree that was Lord Yu. That's right, the reason why Wang Yuer was brought to Bingmo City was because she was kidnapped by the old patriarch. Of course, Liang Xiao would not let such a fellow off so easily. He directly tied him to a large tree and ruthlessly whipped him 30 times with his dragon blood talent. As the patriarch of the Wang tribe, this old fellow had inherited the blood essence of a true dragon and was at the peak of the Nirvana tribulation realm. After suffering 30 lashes from Liang Xiao, he didn't die, but he was seriously injured. Li Xian, I'll leave this old man to you. As for how to deal with him, you can ask Wang Yuer. Liang Xiao directly handed the Wang tribe's patriarch over to Li Xian and Wang Yuer. What should we do? Li Xian did not know if he should attack. This was the patriarch of the Wang tribal clan. Kill him. Wang Yuer said through gritted teeth. All right. After obtaining Wang Yuer's reply, Li Xian didn't hesitate any longer. The innate ability of his dragon bloodline directly erupted and blasted the old patriarch into ashes. Wang Yuer was not a cruel person, but as the patriarch of the Wang tribal clan, she had done too many bad things. If it was just this one matter, Wang Yuer would not have wanted to kill him. But Wang Yuer had seen the old patriarch bully too many people since she was young. Many of the Wang tribal clan's sisters and brothers had died to fey beasts because of the old patriarch's cruel decisions, or were forced to marry to other villages. The key was that the old patriarch had a bunch of minions. This time, those minions would definitely be cleaned up. As for Wang Yuer, she could only recommend someone she felt had the ability to manage the Wang tribal clan. I recommend my aunt. She's an upright person, and she's not weak. She's always been against the patriarch. She didn't come to Armament City this time, but with the patriarch gone, only aunt can manage the Wang tribal clan. Wang Yuer knew that she and Li Xian would be going to Yen Dragon Emperor's Yen Dragon City for training. So they could not manage the Wang tribal clan and the Li tribal clan. The matter was settled. Wang Yuer's compatibility is 65, and Li Xian's compatibility is 66. Logically, the position of leader of the Devouring Dragon group should be given to Li Xian. But Kang Xinmu looked at the relationship between Li Xian and Wang Yuer and could not help but feel a headache. Li Xian was an impulsive youth. With him as the leader of the Devouring Dragon group, it was easy to imagine what the Devouring Dragon group would be like in the future. It was definitely not the Devouring Dragon group that Kang Xinmu wanted to nurture. So, the position of leader was temporarily given to Wang Yuer. Today, he had found 2 genius dragon warriors. This put Kang Xinmu in a good mood. The Devouring Dragon group already had an embryonic form. Although there were only 2 members now, it would definitely become stronger in the future. Unfortunately, this had already taken nearly a month. It looked like 3 months was not enough to find many geniuses to join the Devouring Dragon group. Of course, Kang Xinmu was not in a hurry. 3 days later, Dragon Emperor Yen received the news. He immediately sent a Flame Dragon ambassador over to manage Armament City. This Flame Dragon ambassador was the Dragon King that Kang Xinmu had previously met. The current Dragon King should not be called Dragon King Ming, but Dragon Emperor Ming. This Flame Dragon ambassador had followed Dragon Emperor Yen to roam the Dragon Martial Fortress. Now, he was at the 2nd level of the Dragon Emperor's Divine Dragon Heritage Blood Essence grade. Originally, it was to let Dragon King manage Armament City. However, Dragon Emperor Yen was not at ease. He had sent Dragon Emperor Ming over. From this, it could be seen how much importance Yen Dragon Emperor placed on this matter. With someone at the level of Dragon Emperor Ming presiding over Armament City, Kang Xinmu only needed to briefly explain the situation and there was no need to worry about this matter. After Li Xian and Wang Yuer confirmed that the Li tribal clan and Wang tribal clan would receive good arrangements, they followed Kang Xinmu and left. Let's return to Flame Dragon City first. Kang Xinmu immediately brought Liang Xiao and the 2 members of the Devouring Dragon group. Using the Sun Shadow Flowing Cloud Flash, they shuttled towards Flame Dragon City. This process caused Li Xian and Wang Yuer to feel dizzy. They had never traveled through space before, not to mention traveling through space so frequently. Although Kang Xinmu's Sun Shadow Flowing Cloud Flash could travel a great distance, it was impossible to travel to a place as far away as Flame Dragon City in one go. That was tens of thousands of miles away. Chapter 4794. Jiang Liuxue, Shi Yueying, and Shi Yutong were arranged to stay in Flame Dragon City and train the Devouring Dragon group with Dragon Emperor Yan. Whether it was Dragon Emperor Yan or the 3 women, they were naturally willing to work for Kang Xinmu. Kang Xinmu's existence had allowed all of their cultivation realms to increase by more than 1 level. In fact, without Kang Xinmu, the 3 women would not even be able to reach the 7th level of the Dragon King, and Dragon Emperor Yan would not be able to reach the level of the Dragon Emperor's mentor. Now, Dragon Emperor Yan was at the 5th level of the Dragon Emperor. Although he was the weakest among the Dragon Emperor's mentors, he was now full of confidence for the future. This was because Kang Xinmu could actually help him break through the shackles of the bottleneck. He did not need tens or hundreds of times more cultivation resources to break through the level of the Divine Dragon's blood essence. This was the most terrifying thing in the world. One could imagine that he would not encounter bottlenecks every time he improved in the future. Wasn't this equivalent to having a heaven-defying blood essence compatibility? This was too terrifying. The only troublesome thing was that he needed the Dragon Mark energy from Kang Xinmu to break through. This made Dragon Emperor Yan even more aware of the relationship he needed with Kang Xinmu. Kang Xinmu regarded him as a senior, and he regarded Kang Xinmu as his teacher. Both sides respected each other very much. This kind of relationship, to be honest, was a little strange, but there was no doubt that it was extremely reasonable now. In the past 3 months, Kang Xinmu and the others had not only been constantly cultivating and improving their strength, but more importantly, they had found a total of 15 genius dragon warriors. There were men and women among these genius dragon warriors, and they all came from the Dragon Emperor Kingdom around the Dragon Emperor Kingdom, such as the Northern Chill Dragon Country, the Demon Emperor Dragon Country, and so on. Kang Xinmu secretly found genius dragon warriors from those Dragon Emperor Kingdoms and brought them over. Some of these genius dragon warriors were orphans who had no parents. They could not get the training they deserved as dragon warriors in their respective hometowns. There were even some who were not dragon warriors and had not awakened. Kang Xinmu could see their talent, so he brought them over and awakened them in Flame Dragon City. Anyway, the dragon warrior awakening happened once a year. It would be a waste to give it to others. It would be best to give it to the dragon warrior geniuses with high compatibility. In the Devouring Dragon group, their talents would never be buried. With the arrival of these genius dragon warriors, the Devouring Dragon group was no longer just Li Xian and Wang Yuer. However, the development of the Devouring Dragon group still had a long way to go. The foundation of the Devouring Dragon group was too poor. Even with the cultivation resources provided by Kang Xinmu as a condition, it would still take a long time for them to develop and have enough strength. This period of time could be 1 year, 2 years, or even longer. But no matter what, Jiang Shenwu had provided them with sufficient cultivation resources, allowing each of them to improve at a speed that could reach the limits of a dragon warrior. Some cultivation resources, including the Dragon Mark Jade, could help them improve the grade of the Divine Dragon's Inheritance Blood Essence. After the grade of the Divine Dragon's Inheritance Blood Essence was improved, their originally low basic cultivation realm would be improved at a faster speed. For example, if they all reached the grade of the Divine Dragon's inheritance blood essence at the same level as the Dragon King, but their cultivation realm was only at the martial realm, then their cultivation speed would naturally improve a lot. This was driven by the Divine Dragon's inheritance blood essence. The grade of the Divine Dragon's inheritance blood essence at the level of the Dragon King should be corresponding to the Nirvana Tribulation realm. Therefore, before the Nirvana Tribulation realm, their cultivation speed would be improved. In just 3 months, the members of the Devouring Dragon group had undergone earth-shaking changes. Li Xian and Wang Yue had directly broken through the grade of the Divine Dragon's inheritance blood essence to the first level of the Dragon King. They were the commander and deputy commander of the Devouring Dragon group. Wang Yue was the commander, and Li Xian was the deputy commander. Their cultivation realm had also directly broken through from the first and second level of the martial realm to the 9th level of the martial realm. Their cultivation realm and the grade of the Divine Dragon's inheritance blood essence could be said to have increased at the same time. This state was very good. The first level of the Dragon King, the 9th level of the martial realm, was already not bad. In addition, Dragon Emperor Yan had taken the time to teach them some dragon martial techniques. Although they were not the dragon source martial techniques, they were more suitable for their current combat situation. To sum it up, if Li Xian and Wang Yue were to return to the Li tribal clan and Wang tribal clan, their battle strength would be enough to be the patriarch of their respective tribes. They would definitely be the strongest existences in their respective tribes. As for the other members of the Devouring Dragon group, those who came early had also improved very quickly. But other than Li Xian and Wang Yue, the rest of them only had a blood essence compatibility between 61 to 65. No one was higher than them. Hence, this further consolidated their positions as the commander and deputy commander. Actually, there was no need to say anything more. In the future, even if a genius dragon warrior with a higher compatibility was recruited into the Devouring Dragon group, the positions of the commander and deputy commander would not change. After all, Kang Xinmu thought highly of Li Xian and Wang Yue's character and willpower. Of course, depending on the situation, they could appoint a few more deputy commanders. This was not a problem. The 3 girls, Jiang Liuxue, Shi Yueying and Shi Yutong, had become very mature. They were dedicated to the growth of the Devouring Dragon group. Although their battle strength was much weaker than Kang Xinmu and company, it was because of this that they were closer to the members of the Devouring Dragon group. They had a clearer understanding of what they needed to do to improve themselves. With comprehensive guidance and the support of sufficient cultivation resources, the overall strength of the Devouring Dragon group was constantly increasing. Unfortunately, Kang Xinmu did not have the time to guide them. He could only hand this task over to Dragon Emperor Yan and the 3 girls. As for Jiang Liuxue and the other 2 girls, they were now planning to advance to the middle level of the Reincarnation Tribulation realm. As for the grade of the Divine Dragon's blood essence, they intended to rush to the level of the Dragon Emperor. This was not an easy task. In fact, without the cultivation resources brought back by Kang Xinmu, if they only relied on the Dragon Mark energy from Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy, it would take at least 10 years for them to reach the level of the Dragon Emperor. But now, they could probably achieve this goal within this year. At this time, Kang Xinmu had already brought Liang Xiao, Xiao Yuhua, Ran Ran, and Xiao Bai back to the Dragon Martial Fortress. The dragon gods of the Dragon Martial Continent and the 9 major races were already preparing for the upcoming arena battle. 3 months had passed, and the arena battle was about to begin. Some of the big shots of the dragon gods would also descend on the Dragon Martial Continent. Chapter 4795. Above the Martial Dragon Fortress. The Martial Dragon Continent and the 9 major races, a total of 10 races, were about to have an arena battle in the starry sky outside the Martial Dragon Continent. The rewards for this arena battle were rather generous. Translator, WQL Editor, Alim the reward was some cultivation resources. In terms of gold dragon coins, the champion of the stage below the 4th floor of the Dragon Emperor realm would get 30,000 gold dragon coins. It was already a great reward. Although the 30,000 gold dragon coins didn't seem like much compared to the gold dragon coins that Kong Shinmu had recently obtained, one had to know that even Kong Shinmu himself might not have the chance to obtain a 9-layer engraved heaven and earth saint grade weapon in the future. No matter what, the 30,000 gold dragon coins would be a huge profit no matter who won it. After all, the rewards for this arena battle were jointly funded by the 10 major races. Whoever won would take it all. This was a huge profit. As for the champion of the Dragon Emperor's mentor-level arena battle, he would receive 100,000 gold dragon coins as a reward. Not only the champion, but the rewards for the 2nd to 10th place were also not bad. Taking the rewards for the 4th layer and below as an example, the 1st place prize was worth 30,000 gold dragon coins, and the 2nd place prize was worth 20,000 gold dragon coins, which was enough to buy a heaven-grade divine dragon weapon and 2 high-grade divine dragon martial skills. The 3rd place would receive 15,000 gold dragon coins while the 4th and 5th place would receive 10,000 gold dragon coins. As for the 6th to 10th place, they would receive 5,000 gold dragon coins. This would also be enough to purchase a high-grade divine dragon martial technique. It could be said that the rewards were rather generous. As for the 5th level and above Dragon Emperor's mentor-level arena battle, the rewards were more than 3 times higher. The 1st place would receive 100,000 gold dragon coins, the 2nd place would receive 70,000 gold dragon coins, the 3rd place would receive 50,000 gold dragon coins, the 4th and 5th place would receive 30,000 gold dragon coins, and the 6th to 10th place would receive 12,000 gold dragon coins each. Of course, these rewards were equivalent to the cultivation resources. The conversion of gold dragon coins was only a rough idea. From this, it could be seen that the rewards that the 10 major races had accumulated together were extremely tempting. For experts at the peak of the 9th layer of the Emperor realm, if they could obtain 100,000 gold dragon coins worth of cultivation resources, they would definitely be able to break through to the High God realm. Super Mystical Dragon, Super Demon God, and so on. They were all powerful existences of this level. Once they broke through, they would be existences of another level. Therefore, it was unknown how many experts from the 10 major races were rubbing their palms together for this arena battle. First of all, there was an age limit for those who participated in the 4th stage of the Martial Emperor realm and below. They couldn't be over 50 years old. Otherwise, if some of the older guys were to make a move, no one would be a match for them. As for the Dragon Emperor Mentor's arena battle, there was no age restriction. If Kong Shinmu were to fight, the challenge and test he would face would be even greater. It was said that for this arena battle, the other 9 clans had even called over some experts from their clans at the last minute in order to obtain the rewards for the top 10 winners. There was only one 1st place, but as long as someone from the clan obtained any ranking, then they wouldn't suffer a loss in this arena battle. Even if they suffered a loss, it wouldn't be too much. This time, each clan basically took out about 50,000 gold dragon coins worth of cultivation resources, and they were all eyeing the 1st place covetously. If they didn't even get a ranking in the arena battle, then they would definitely suffer a great loss. Therefore, this was a test and temptation for every practitioner from the 10 major races. It was also extremely important for each of the 10 major races. The cultivation resources that the dragon gods took out were naturally provided by the 4 dragon martial arts academies. Except for the supreme-level mystical dragons behind them, no one else could take out so much money as a wager. After all, the dragon gods were the hosts, and they should be the sponsors for this arena battle. They had to spend the money, so since they had spent the money, they definitely wanted to get a good ranking. It was said that the supreme-level mystical dragons behind the 4 dragon martial arts academies all took out some resources as the rewards for this arena battle. Emperor Shi's divine dragon and Qing Tian's dragon of calamity came to watch the battle as sponsors. The other two supreme-level dragon warriors didn't show up. Right now, the dragon gods didn't have so many supreme-level fighting forces that were free to run around. Even Emperor Shi's divine dragon and Qing Tian's dragon of calamity had a hard time finding time to come. Of course, Emperor Shi's divine dragon and Qing Tian's dragon of calamity hadn't arrived yet. The arena battle of the 10 major races was still being prepared. Everyone was rubbing their palms, including the mentors of the Dragon Emperor. They were all constantly improving their strength. Fortunately, Kang Xinmu had given the heaven-level holy spiritual dragon weapons to Chu Yueqiang and Tan Shouzhua in advance. After nearly 3 months, they should be a little more familiar with their heaven-level holy spiritual dragon weapons. Hopefully, they could get better results in the arena battle of the Dragon Emperor mentors. There are many people participating in this arena battle. First is the arena battle of the 4th level of the Emperor stage and below. In our Dragon Martial continent, it is mainly divided into 3 groups. The first is the students of the Dragon Martial Arts Academy, the second is the commander of the Dragon Emperor country, the Dragon Emperor, and the third is the Dragon Warriors from the hidden Dragon Warrior families. It's hard to say who is stronger and who is weaker, but the Dragon Emperor country has the least number of Dragon Emperor country commanders, because many of them are old and can't participate according to the rules. Those who participate in this arena battle are basically the Dragon Warriors of the 4th level of the Dragon Emperor country. Of course, there are exceptions. After all, there are no hard and fast rules. As long as you are under 50 and have not reached the 5th level of the Emperor stage, you can participate in this arena battle. I must get first place. After that, I will break through to the 7th level of the Rebirth state, and then to the 5th level of the Dragon Emperor country. After 2 breakthroughs, it's time for me to step into the arena battle of the Dragon Emperor mentors. Fortunately, I bought a lot of spirit chi essences of the dark element at the treasure pavilion. My cultivation of the 9th level of the ultimate dragon explosion will be able to reach the next level and achieve another breakthrough. But in this battle, it's not convenient to use the Tian K demonic dragon of ice and fire's ability. It's not suitable to use it in front of the top 10 races. It's best to use it in private battles. Kang Xinmu felt it was a pity. He was very curious about the Tian K demonic dragon of ice and fire's ability, but he hadn't had the chance to use it recently. Chapter 4796. The heavenly deficient demonic dragon of fire and ice's main ability was to devour time. However, it couldn't be used against opponents who were too weak. The demonic ancestor's explanation was that the power of time devoured from weak opponents would be less effective when used on Kang Xinmu. In other words, 2 hours of time devoured from an opponent would be equivalent to less than 1 breath for Kang Xinmu. That was why it wasn't necessary. However, if he was on par with Kang Xinmu, the more time Kang Xinmu devoured, the more time Kang Xinmu could use. That was more or less what it meant. In any case, it was very difficult to cultivate by devouring the time of the weak. He had to find an opponent who was on par with him or someone stronger than Kang Xinmu. Moreover, this method wasn't suitable to be used in public. It was more suitable to be used in secret, such as in the Supreme Ruins. That was why Kang Xinmu could put the heavenly deficient demonic dragon of fire and ice's abilities aside for the time being. He would first increase his combat ability in other areas. Speaking of which, Kang Xinmu hadn't fought in a long time. He had yet to use the illusory ghost book and the Great Compassion Heavenly Dragon Seal, but he would familiarize himself with the 2 heaven-grade Saint spiritual dragon weapons when he had the time. Now, he could already unleash 60% of their power. The more intense the battle, the more compatible the dragon warrior and the dragon weapon would be. If they could achieve 100% compatibility, they would be able to fuse and unleash greater power. It was already impressive that Kang Shinmu could use 60% of the Sky-Grade Holy Dragon weapon's power. After all, it hadn't been long since he'd obtained the two weapons. The day before the arena battles, Kang Shinmu and the others were still cultivating at Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy office in the Martial Dragon Fortress. Kang Shinmu was constantly improving his 9th Extreme Dao Hui Dragon Explosion. He was now at the peak of the 6th Extreme Dao Hui Dragon Explosion, but he was still far from the 7th Extreme Dao Hui Dragon Explosion. Even though Kang Shinmu had been cultivating this high-grade Holy Spirit Dragon martial technique recently, it was still very difficult for him to cultivate it to the high level of the 7th stage explosion. After all, it was considered a high-level mastery. Once it was mastered, there would be a qualitative change. It was normal for Kang Shinmu to fail to achieve it. And at this moment, Kang Shinmu felt an incomparably tyrannical aura descend upon him. It appeared near the office of Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy. This is the aura of a supreme divine dragon. 2 from the Martial Dragon Fortress. Jiang Shenwu's expression changed slightly. There were only 2 supreme dragon martialists who would come to the Martial Dragon Fortress at this time. It could only be those 2. The divine dragon of Emperor Shi, and the dragon of Azure Sky Calamity. Kang Shinmu had heard of these 2 supreme divine dragons too many times, but he had only seen them a few times. At this moment, Ling Hu Dai ran over and knocked on Kang Shinmu's door. Kang Shinmu, the divine dragon of Emperor Shi is here. Why aren't you coming out to greet him? You should take this opportunity to formally acknowledge him as your master. Ling Hu Dai also knew that Kang Shinmu had been taken in as a personal disciple by the divine dragon of Emperor Shi. Hence, she directly ran over to inform Kang Shinmu. In an instant, the entire office of Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy became tense. Countless dragon martialists, including Instructor Dragon Emperor, all woke up from their closed-door training and rushed to the central hall of the office. Kang Shinmu was no exception. He walked out of the courtyard and saw Ling Hu Dai. Along the way, he called Liang Xiao, Xiao Bai, Xiao Yuhua, and ran over and walked to the hall. Ling Hu Dai led the way in front. Soon, they followed a large group of people to the hall of the office of Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy. This was the most crowded place in history. On one hand, all the dragon martialists were preparing for the arena battles. On the other hand, the arrival of the divine dragon of Emperor Shi was also a great attraction to the students of Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy. Kang Shinmu followed Ling Hu Dai to the hall and saw a figure that he had met once before. It was a woman with long black hair. She exuded a majestic aura, but in reality, her aura was not revealed. It was only the aura of a strong cultivator that was naturally displayed. It made people feel awe and respect. The woman with long black hair was dressed in a red robe. Her eyes seemed to be filled with flames, and her every move seemed to have the power to destroy the world. This was the divine dragon of Emperor Shi. Of course, this was the human form of the divine dragon of Emperor Shi. She appeared in the office of Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy, and this time, she did not put on any airs. The last time Kang Shinmu saw the divine dragon of Emperor Shi was when the crack in the void had just appeared. After killing the demonic creatures in the void in the starry sky to train, the divine dragon of Emperor Shi back then was extremely majestic. Of course, that was in front of all the students of the 4 great dragon martial arts academies. This time, it was different. She was only facing her own students from Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy. They were all on the same side, so there was no need for her to maintain absolute majesty. It was also necessary to be a little more relaxed so that the students would fear her less and respect her more. Kang Shinmu, you are here, the divine dragon of Emperor Shi spoke. Her voice was very pleasant to the ears, and it did not have the same majestic feeling as last time. If one had to compare it, it would be like a parent talking to their child. It is me, Senior Emperor Shi. Kang Xinmu immediately nodded respectfully. He saw that beside the divine dragon of Emperor Shi, Yu Yaji, who was also dressed in red, was standing. Yu Yaji was smiling at him. Yu Yaji was one of the personal disciples of the divine dragon of Emperor Shi. Kang Xinmu was also about to become the personal disciple of the divine dragon of Emperor Shi. In other words, he would have to call Headmaster Yu Yaji senior sister in the future. In that case, he would be in the same generation as Yu Yaji. This made Kang Xinmu think of a person. Yu Tianchang, the genius dragon martial artist with the image of a big sister, was actually a generation younger than Kang Xinmu. This made Kang Xinmu feel that the world was unpredictable. The rest of you, disperse first. Kang Xinmu, come with me. The divine dragon of Emperor Shi nodded slightly at Kang Xinmu. Then, with a faint smile on her face, she turned and walked into the depths of the office. In an instant, the other unrelated people naturally dispersed and looked at Kang Xinmu with envy. Both the male and female students were very envious of Kang Xinmu. They had all heard that Kang Xinmu was already the personal disciple of the divine dragon of Emperor Shi. It was just that he had not formally acknowledged her as his master yet. Now, it should be time for him to formally acknowledge her as his master, right? Kang Xinmu also thought so. At this time, only he and Yu Yaji were still following the divine dragon of Emperor Shi. Even Ling Hu Dai had taken the initiative to block the others behind her. Very quickly, the three of them came to a courtyard deep in the office. This courtyard was the residence of Yu Yaji, the headmaster. It was already the least likely place for outsiders to disturb the office. Chapter 4797. In the courtyard of Yu Yaji's residence. Emperor Shi walked forward slowly with a smile on his face. Kang Xinmu, since I saw you at the void demonic creature training, I have been paying attention to you. I didn't expect your performance to surprise me more and more. You are even more amazing than I was back then. This. I don't deserve it, I don't deserve it. Kang Xinmu suddenly felt a little embarrassed. Emperor Shi was a supreme divine dragon, and he actually had such a high evaluation of him. It was really rare. What's there to not deserve? Emperor Shi pursed his lips into a smile and sat beside a stone table in the courtyard. Yaji, take a seat as well. But Kang Xinmu, you can't sit. You have to go through the ceremony first. Ceremony? Kang Xinmu was a little confused. Yes, according to logic, if a supreme divine dragon wants to take in a personal disciple, the disciple needs to go through the ceremony. Yu Yaji sat down beside Emperor Shi's divine dragon, covered her mouth, and laughed softly. The ceremony of becoming a disciple is to kowtow. 3 kowtows will do. However, you've brought out a 9-layer engraved heaven and earth saint item. It's the best gift for me. You can skip the apprenticeship ceremony. Emperor Shi suddenly changed his tone and smiled as he waved his hand. Although he said that, he did not take out the holy item to show. After all, it was a precious treasure that belonged to the entire Dragon God clan. To unlock the 9-layered seal, the Dragon God clan had to work together as a whole. No one knew how much resources had been used. Now, Emperor Shi's combat power should have increased greatly. Therefore, Emperor Shi's mystical dragon was definitely very fond of Jiang Shenwu. By the way, Kang Xinmu, I heard that you plan to participate in both arena battles this time? Emperor Shi asked again. Yes. I do plan to do so. Kang Xinmu saw that Emperor Shi did not put on airs at all. He was very amiable, just like a teacher. So he relaxed. Then your opponent is Dai. Why don't you guys fight first? Emperor Shi's eyes immediately lit up, and he looked a little excited. This caused Kang Xinmu to start. Fight with Shangguan Dai, At this stage, it was almost impossible for him to defeat Shangguan Dai, After all, he had not broken through to the 5th level of the Dragon Emperor, and his cultivation level had not risen to the next level. It was basically impossible for him to defeat Shangguan Dai, Cough cough. Emperor Shi's mystical dragon saw that Kang Xinmu seemed to be a little unwilling, so he immediately pretended to be serious. He coughed and said, "Since you are now my personal disciple, then I naturally have to take on the task of guiding you. If you don't fight in front of me, how can I give you pointers on your current problems? That's why, you fight with Dai, first. Master will see if there are any problems with your battle. Even if you can't win, it doesn't matter. Anyway, I heard that you are very resistant to beatings. As long as you don't die, it's fine." When Kang Xinmu heard this, he wanted to cry but had no tears. Originally, he had thought that Emperor Shi's mystical dragon was a high and mighty goddess-like figure. He did not expect that he would look so black-bellied and actually say such philosophical words. Linghu Dai, is now at the 9th level of the Dragon Emperor, at the pinnacle of the reincarnation tribulation realm. She has also condensed the power of reincarnation thrice. She is the strongest person that has appeared in Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy in recent years. Emperor Shi's mystical dragon narrowed his eyes and said, "Kang Xinmu, you have to be careful when you fight with her." Fight? What kind of fight was this? Wasn't this supposed to be a spar? Kang Xinmu did not have the energy to complain. At this time, Yu Yaji had already called Shangguan Dai in. Like Kang Xinmu, Shangguan Dai, did not seem to know much about Emperor Shi's mystical dragon. When she came in, she was somewhat reserved and respectful. However, Emperor Shi's mystical dragon seemed to be completely unconventional when facing his own people. He did not put on any airs at all. He even crossed his legs on the stone bench. He said to Shangguan Dai, fight with Kang Xinmu first. Let me see what he is currently lacking. Also, since you are participating in the arena battles this time, I can also help you see if you can increase your battle prowess in a short period of time. Shangguan Dai, did not expect Emperor Shi's mystical dragon to be like this. She stared blankly at Emperor Shi's mystical dragon, who was eating melon seeds. She hurriedly rubbed her eyes, thinking that she had seen wrongly. However, she quickly realized that she had not seen wrongly. This Emperor Shi's mystical dragon was really unconventional. That's right, before you start fighting, let me tell you a piece of good news. Emperor Shi's mystical dragon seemed to have thought of something. Suddenly, he felt that it was very funny and laughed. Well, the Dragon of Calamity of the Azure Sky also studied you with me, Kang Xinmu. In the end, he found out that you were actually chased out of Donghuang Yanggu College. Haha, that's too funny. That Xiaofan is going to be in big trouble. I'm afraid he will be taken back to his holy land to be confined for at least 10 years. Oh, no, at least 20 years. He won't be able to come out. I will tell the Dragon of Calamity to lock him up for 20 years. A mere 10 years is too little. When these words were said, Kang Xinmu's expression changed slightly. He did not expect that this matter would eventually reach the ears of the Dragon of Calamity of the Azure Sky. The key to all this was that he had obtained a sacred item of heaven and earth with 9 layers of inscriptions. Because of this, he was even accepted as a disciple by Emperor Shi. Such a talented and capable dragon warrior student, Xiaofan, had actually chased him away. This was simply preposterous. One could imagine how angry the Dragon of Calamity of the Azure Sky was now. This honor had appeared in the holy land of 5 extremes mysterious ice. That was why the sacred item of heaven and earth with 9 layers of inscriptions had fallen into Yu Yaji's hands. Otherwise, he, the Dragon of Calamity of the Azure Sky, would also have had the ability to compete. This Xiaofan had caused him to lose a sacred item of heaven and earth with 9 layers of inscriptions. This was too infuriating. This was simply hateful. The dragon of calamity of the azure sky would probably be depressed to death because of this Xiaofan. And this Xiaofan would finally be locked up for 10 years. Oh no, 20 years. This news was really great for Kang Xinmu. In this way, Donghuang Yangwu College would no longer have Xiaofan. And Kang Xinmu would also not have to worry about the threat from Donghuang Yangwu College. The key was that if he was not hostile to Donghuang Yangwu College, he could openly interact with many of his old friends from Donghuang Yangwu College, as well as Chu Yueqiang and Tan Shoujua's tutors. All right. Emperor Shi waved his hand and put this matter aside for now. You two fight first, and I will give you some pointers. In these 2 arena battles, I think the 2 of you have a lot of hope. Don't drop the ball at the crucial moment. With Emperor Shi's personal guidance, Shangguan Dai, and Kang Xinmu had a greater chance of winning this arena battle. Shangguan Dai's goal this time was to be in the top 10 of the Dragon Emperor's mentor-level arena battles. One had to know that this was the joint arena battle of the 10 major races. Even if she was ranked first in the Dragon Martial Artist category, she would not definitely be able to enter the top 10. Moreover, with Shangguan Dai's current combat power, among the Dragon Martial Artists in the 9th level of the Dragon Emperor, she could not be considered first at all. At best, she could be in the top 5. Chapter 4798. Therefore, before the arena battle began, Emperor Shi wanted to give some pointers to Kang Xinmu and Shangguan Dai. Then please. Shangguan Dai covered her mouth and laughed softly, then followed Emperor Shi to the inner training ground. Under the courtyard of Dean Yu Yaji's residence, there was a vast training ground. Dragon martial artists could transform into dragon martial artists and fight freely without worrying about affecting the surrounding environment. Kang Xinmu was not too pretentious. Although his strength was not at its peak, he could still fight with Shangguan Dai. Since there were only his own people, it was a good opportunity for Kang Xinmu to familiarize himself with the use of the Phantom Ghost Book and the Great Compassion Dragon Seal. He had not used these 2 heaven-grade divine dragon weapons in actual combat. These 2 heaven-grade divine dragon weapons were not as simple as they seemed. They were super powerful heaven-grade divine dragon weapons that had been illuminated thrice. In terms of combat power, it definitely far surpassed any ordinary heavenly stage Saint Spirit dragon weapon. Even Shangguan Dai did not have such a heavenly stage Saint Spirit dragon weapon. That was because many of the glorious transformation materials were extremely expensive, and ordinary dragon warriors would not be able to gather them. Most importantly, the illumination of dragon weapons could only be done after reaching the Super Shenlong level. There were very few who could actually illuminate it at the Emperor level. Only a very small number of rich and powerful people could do this, or it was a nouveau riche like Kang Xinmu. After all, at the Super Shenlong level, even if a heaven-grade divine dragon weapon was illuminated thrice, it was not the strongest. There were super divine dragon weapons that were even stronger. Even the most ordinary super divine dragon weapon was much more powerful than a heaven-grade divine dragon weapon. Therefore, it was undoubtedly a waste to illuminate a heaven-grade divine dragon weapon. Kang Xinmu and Shangguan Dai flew to the center of the training ground, while Emperor Shi and Yu Yaji watched the battle from the side. Teacher, I'm going to attack. Kang Xinmu's level was lower than Shangguan Dai's, so he did not hesitate. He directly transformed into the form of a 10,000 Zhonglong Dragon Emperor, then used the Divine Dragon Tyrant Body technique, switching to an aggressive stance. Let's use our strongest burst first. Without any hesitation, Kang Xinmu activated the Phantom Ghost Book. However, the illusionary ghost tome did not appear in front of Shangguan Dai. After all, the illusionary ghost tome was a heavenly stage Saint Spirit dragon weapon with extremely powerful concealment abilities, and its attack, concealment, and void battle runes were activated simultaneously. 9th stage Extreme Dao Dragon Explosion. Kang Shinmu's strongest attack was unleashed by the illusionary ghost book, and he appeared right in front of Shengguan Dai. 6 layers of darkness dragon breath exploded in front of her. In the next instant, Shengguan Dai transformed into a divine fire dragon, her entire body seeming to be bathed in flames. A terrifying fire attribute innate ability formed a barrier of flames, blocking Kang Shinmu's attack. Kang Shinmu was feeling a bit uncomfortable. He had just unleashed his most powerful attack, and had even used the Voidwalker Ghost Tome. That was his strongest attack yet. However, he soon discovered that to Shengguan Dai, such an attack was still too weak. In fact, it did not even pose a threat to her. Although the 9th stage Extreme Dao Dragon Explosion had appeared directly in front of her, Shengguan Dai's control over the void energies was extremely strong, and so she was able to sense Kang Shinmu's attack and use her defenses to block it. Impressive. Kang Shinmu, if you used that attack on an ordinary 9th level martial emperor, they might not even be able to block it. Shengguan Dai praised him as her divine fire dragon body flashed, directly activating the high-level source dragon skill of the shadowy blade flowing cloud flash and leaving her original position. Her shadowy blade flowing cloud flash had been trained to the extreme saint stage, and that was the highest level of a dragon skill, and one would be able to grasp all of its profound mysteries. As such, when she activated it, she did not leave any traces behind, directly appearing behind Kang Shinmu. Blazing battle flames. Shengguan Dai directly activated the high-level divine spirit dragon skill, and a burst of flame energy suddenly ignited behind Kang Shinmu, then enveloped him from all directions, but Kang Shinmu did not hesitate at all, and his devouring power surged out in all directions. Great Compassion Heavenly Dragon Seal. Kang Shinmu's powerful defensive dragon weapon was activated by him, and immediately a stone mark appeared in front of him, flashing with a golden light. The defensive patterns on it were all activated, and the entire dragon weapon's power was integrated into his devouring power. Divine Dragon Tyrant Body Technique, Guardian Stance. The Divine Dragon Tyrant Body Technique's transformation was still very useful to Kang Shinmu, and as soon as the Guardian Stance appeared, the surrounding devouring power immediately condensed and became incomparably strong. There was a loud bang, and the shock waves of power spread out in all directions, and the flames spread throughout the entire training ground. Kang Shinmu's devouring power continuously devoured the spreading power around him, whether it was the flame energy or the extreme saint stage shadowy blade flowing cloud flash left behind by Shengguan Dai, all of it was directly devoured by Kang Shinmu. His understanding of the shadowy blade flowing cloud flash deepened, and his resistance to the power of fire was also becoming stronger. Kang Shinmu's devouring speed was extremely fast now. Unfortunately, it was not convenient to use the heavenly flaw demonic dragon of fire and ice's ability, otherwise Kang Shinmu would have taken the opportunity to try it out. The demon god ancestor reminded him that the heavenly flaw demonic dragon of fire and ice's ability to devour was harmful to its opponents, and would deprive them of a certain amount of time energy. Therefore, it was not suitable to use it on one's own people, and could only be used on enemies. On the training ground, Kang Shinmu and Shengguan Dai exchanged blows. Shengguan Dai did not use her heaven-ranked divine dragon weapon, but even so, she was still able to suppress Kang Shinmu, and she was not at a disadvantage at all. Even though Kang Shinmu had devoured the power of fire, and his resistance to the power of fire had reached its peak, he still found it difficult to withstand Shengguan Dai's attacks. Her attacks were too fierce. Right now, Kang Shinmu's cultivation level and the grade of the divine dragon's blood essence had not increased yet, so it was normal that he could not defeat Shengguan Dai. Even if he used all his skills, he still would not be a match for Shengguan Dai. In this state, when I break through to the 5th level of the Dragon Emperor and increase my cultivation level by another level, will I be able to fight Shengguan Dai to a draw? Kang Xinmu still had some doubts about this. Chapter 4799. However, Kang Xinmu wasn't too worried. It wasn't like he had to win first place in the Dragon Emperor's match. If he really couldn't do it, he could just go through the motions. What I lack now is time. As long as I have enough time, I can definitely increase my cultivation level and the grade of the divine dragon's blood essence, Kang Xinmu thought to himself. But at this moment, the demon god ancestor's consciousness suddenly reminded, perhaps, in the process of the arena battle, you can try cultivating. Use the heaven-deficient demonic dragon of ice and fire to devour your opponent's time and improve yourself as you fight. Although the heaven-deficient demonic dragon of ice and fire's time-devouring method is a little strange and will be sensed by the supreme beings present, I don't think it's a big deal even if they know. After all, there are many similar methods. The demon god's consciousness's suggestion was feasible. If he could directly devour his opponent's time in the match and use it to cultivate, then Kang Xinmu might be able to improve before the Dragon Emperor's match, or during the match. The key was to make full use of the time. I can give it a try and see if devouring time to cultivate is reliable and how effective it is. That was the only plan Kang Xinmu could come up with. His sparring with Shangguan Dai had ended very quickly. That was because he was no match for Shangguan Dai, and Shangguan Dai had been going easy on him, not taking out her heavenly staged divine spirit dragon weapon. If she had used her heavenly staged divine spirit dragon weapon, Jiang Shenwu would not have been her match. Shangguan Dai now had two heaven-grade holy dragon weapons. One was her own, and the other was a gift from Kang Xinmu. She was too embarrassed to use the heaven-grade holy dragon weapon Kang Xinmu had given her to spar with Kang Xinmu. Both sides fought fiercely for about half an hour. Almost all the methods that they could bring out had been used. And the battle prowess that Kang Xinmu displayed caused Emperor Shi to be somewhat surprised. Kang Xinmu, your battle prowess has already far surpassed the level of your cultivation and the grade of your inherited blood essence. It has even surpassed several tiers. Has your power of nirvana been condensed completely? Yes, Master. Kang Xinmu replied respectfully. His nirvana energy had been condensed since the fourth level of the nirvana tribulation stage, and every time he advanced to the next level, he would condense it once more. Compared to ordinary people, his basic strength was at least 30% stronger. Moreover, his reincarnation power was completely condensed now, which directly enhanced the strength of his devouring power. No matter what kind of dragon martial skill it was used to execute, its power would become stronger, so this was the problem of the strength of one's foundation. This was also the most fundamental reason why Kang Xinmu was able to challenge those of a higher level. Why would ordinary dragon martial artists or practitioners of other races become stronger when their cultivation and inheritance grade increased? It was because every time their cultivation or inheritance grade increased, their basic strength would nearly double. This was the reason why cultivation was so important, and the inheritance grade was the same. Right now, Kang Xinmu's cultivation and inheritance grade were not strong enough. This was his weakness. However, he had many other tricks up his sleeves. The key was the two heaven-grade Saint spiritual dragon weapons that had been dazzled thrice, and the 9th tier extreme Tao Hui dragon explosion that he had cultivated quite well. Kang Xinmu, I heard that you can devour the power of other people's dragon martial skills and use it to improve the progress of your own dragon martial skill? After the two finished sparring, Emperor Shi directly came up and asked. It's like this. Kang Xinmu replied. Since that's the case, I can help you quickly improve your 9th tier extreme Tao Hui dragon explosion. Of course, I can't help you with the divine dragon tyrant body technique. As for the wind shadow flowing cloud flash, I believe that your current level is not bad, so there's no need for it. Emperor Shi said with a smile. The divine dragon tyrant body technique was a body refining dragon martial skill, and it was only a high-grade source dragon martial skill. Other than Kong Shinmu, very few people cultivated it. Moreover, cultivating it required a lot of resources from the prehistoric tyrant body beast. So now, Kong Shinmu could not improve further. The next step was the extreme saint realm, which was not so easy to break through. As for the wind shadow flowing cloud flash, Kong Shinmu had already reached the saint level, and the next step to the extreme saint realm was not so easy. It was not a breakthrough that could be achieved in a short time. Even if he devoured the essence of other people's cultivation, it was unlikely that he could break through in a short time. As for the 9th tier extreme Tao Hui dragon explosion, this was a high-grade saint spiritual dragon martial skill. It was the strongest dragon martial skill that the Dragon Emperor could cultivate at his current stage. It just so happened that Emperor Shi seemed to have cultivated this dragon martial skill before. To Kong Shinmu, this was a great piece of news. However, Emperor Shi first gave Shangguan Dai, some pointers, telling her that there were some areas that could be improved in the process of executing some dragon martial skills. If she trained and cultivated according to Emperor Shi's instructions, when the Dragon Emperor's mentor-level arena battle started, Shangguan Dai's battle prowess would increase by at least 30%. This was the importance of a mentor. Emperor Shi was someone who had cultivated on the path of the Dragon Emperor. It could be said that many of the dragon martial skills in Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy were actually cultivated by Emperor Shi before, and she had cultivated them to the peak. With her guidance, Kong Shinmu and Shangguan Dai naturally improved rapidly. As for Kong Shinmu's side, it was mainly the breakthrough of the 9th tier extreme Tao Hui dragon explosion. Emperor Shi's mystical dragon could casually execute the 9th tier dark dragon breath explosion. This was a technique that had been cultivated to the peak level. For Kong Shinmu, as long as he devoured the power that she unleashed, he would be able to comprehend this technique a lot more. So, next, Kong Shinmu began to concentrate on comprehending and cultivating this technique. Emperor Shi did not transform into a dragon. Instead, she directly executed the 9th tier extreme Tao Hui dragon explosion in her human form. In the training field, the left side suddenly exploded 9 times in a row, and the right side suddenly exploded 9 times in a row. Kong Shinmu could only continuously devour the power of the 9th tier extreme Tao Hui dragon explosion. Emperor Shi's comprehension of this technique was 2 levels higher than fully unleashing the power of the 9th tier extreme Tao Hui dragon explosion. If being able to completely execute the 9th tier extreme Tao Hui dragon explosion was the peak, then Emperor Shi's current comprehension of this dragon martial skill was 2 levels higher than the peak, the ultimate saint realm. The 9th tier extreme Tao Hui dragon explosion could already unleash extremely powerful power. However, if the power of each explosion was increased by even 10%, the final 9th tier extreme Tao Hui dragon explosion would be extremely terrifying. Therefore, after reaching the peak, one still needed to cultivate to the saint level, or even the ultimate saint realm. Chapter 4800. The extreme saint realm required one to cultivate the dragon martial technique to its peak. There was only 1 day left before the arena battles began. However, in this 1 day, Kong Shinmu continued to devour the power of Emperor Shi's 9th stage ultimate roaring dragon explosion, forcibly pushing his 9th stage ultimate roaring dragon explosion to the 8th stage. Previously, he had already absorbed a lot of dark attribute spiritual chi essence, pushing his 9th stage ultimate roaring dragon explosion close to the bottleneck of the 7th stage. Today, just by devouring a little bit, he directly broke through to the 7th stage. Then, after spending an entire night, Jiang Shenwu successfully used Emperor Shi's divine dragon's comprehension of this dragon martial technique to break through to the 8th layer. This was a huge change. If it was said that Shangguan Dai had been able to easily block this attack when Jiang Shenwu had used it to attack her, now, Shangguan Dai did not even dare to block it without using her heaven stage saint spiritual dragon weapon. she could only dodge. This was a metamorphosis. The 6th and 8th stages of the 9th stage extreme Dao Horn Dragon bursts might have increased by 3 to 4 times. Furthermore, the strength of the attacks could be stacked on top of each other, allowing them to directly break through some defenses that were originally impenetrable. As for Shengguan Dai, she had also improved greatly. Emperor Shi's divine dragon had just casually given them a few pointers, and both Jiang Shenwu and Shengguan Dai's combat power had increased greatly. Because of the special nature of the devouring power, Kang Shinmu's attack power had increased by 3 or 4 times. If he used this move directly with the Phantom Ghost Book, there was no 4th level Emperor stage cultivator who could be his match. Very good, Kang Shinmu. This time, you are basically the first in the arena battles for 4th level Emperor stage cultivators and below. The rules are like this. The arena battles will be divided into 16 arenas. The arena battles will last for 3 days. At the end of the 3 days, the 16 people still standing on the arenas will enter the finals. Finally, the top 10 will be decided by elimination. Of course, the battles on the arenas will not last more than the time it takes to burn a stick of incense. If the battle lasts longer than that, the one who is more heavily injured will leave. Everyone has 3 chances to challenge the arena battle. As long as you meet the requirements, you can go on stage. Martial Emperor level 4 and below, no more than 50 years old. Moreover, the opponents might be from the other 9 races. They might have some strange tricks up their sleeves. We should be careful. These were the specific rules of the arena battles, and the same rules applied to the arena battles of the Dragon Emperor's mentor. If Kang Shinmu wanted to cultivate and improve at the same time during the arena battles, then he would have to constantly defend the arena. Within these 3 days, every battle would allow him to improve to a higher level. Outside the martial dragon fortress, 16 giant arenas appeared in the sky, surrounding the 4 directions to form a giant arena. 16 giant arenas were suspended in the void, surrounded by 10 spectator stands that were arranged for the 10 major races. These 10 races were the Divine Dragon Clan and the 9 races that had attacked the Martial Dragon Continent together with them. The Demon Gods, Ancient Phoenix, Virtual Human, Talisman Water, and so on were all among them. It was worth noting that these races were actually all humans. It was just that their cultivation heritage was different, so they were divided into different races. If he appeared in the arena battles of the 4th level of the Martial Emperor stage and below, he would be an opponent worthy of Kang Shinmu's attention. Of course, if the other party used a sacred item, Kang Shinmu would also have one. However, Kang Shinmu soon learned that it was forbidden to use a sacred item in such an arena battle because it was unfair. This rule was proposed by the Divine Dragon of Emperor Shi and the Dragon of Calamity of Qing Tian. After all, when it came to the number of sacred objects of heaven and earth, the other 9 clans obviously had the advantage. Who knew who among the geniuses participating in the challenge battles would have a sacred object of heaven and earth? On the side of the dragon gods, they were all local cultivators of the Martial Dragon Continent. The only one who had a sacred item was Kang Shinmu. This was absolute. If Jiang Shenwu wanted to defeat his opponent, he didn't need a heaven and earth saint grade weapon at all. Therefore, if he banned a heaven and earth saint grade weapon, the entire arena battle would be relatively fairer. As for the situation of the other 9 major races, because they were too far away in the void, Kang Shinmu did not know. He, Xiao Bai, Ran, and the others followed Emperor Shi, the dragon god, and Din Yuyaji to the void where the arena was located. He saw many familiar dragon martial artists and students of the 4 major academies appearing in the spectator seats. Because of the presence of Emperor Shi and the Dragon of Calamity, the order would not be disrupted at all. Whoever dared to be disrupted would be courting death. Chapter 4801. Emperor Shi Dragon and Qing Tian Calamity Dragon sat at the highest point of the spectator stand, in the center of the Dragon God Clan spectator stand. Below them were the students of the 4 Dragon Martial Academies. Many students were actually here to watch the battle and were not qualified to fight at all. It was not that they did not meet the requirements, but that they were too weak. Among the 4 Dragon Martial Academies, there were only about 90 students below Mentor Dragon Emperor who could reach the 4th level of Dragon Emperor. These were all rising in recent years, and they were strong competitors for the students of the Divine Center District. But there were more than 900 students from the 4 Dragon Martial Academies who were qualified to come to the spectator stand, and they were all students who had reached at least the 5th level of Dragon King. Those who had not reached this level did not need to come to watch the battle because it was too far away from them. Kang Xinmu did not even let Jiang Liuxue, Shi Yueying, and Shi Yutong come, and they planned to stay in the Yen Dragon Emperor to train the members of the Devouring Dragon group. This made Kang Xinmu feel that it was a pity, but after thinking about it, it was indeed useless for the 3 girls to come to watch the arena battle. If they left, there would be no one to watch the Devouring Dragon group, and that would not be good. So this was the only way. On the side of Donghuang Yanwu College, Kang Xinmu saw Qin Xiaoye with Luo Han, Su Qin, and Liang Luo, the son of the Dragon Emperor of Great Liang. They were still in the same team, fighting on the battlefield and improving themselves. Qin Xiaoye was still at the 4th level of Dragon Emperor. She did not break through to the 5th level of Dragon Emperor, because she also wanted to participate in this arena battle. Once she broke through to the 5th level of Dragon Emperor, she could not participate in the arena battle. Was she supposed to participate in the arena battle of the Dragon Emperor mentors? Except for Kang Xinmu, no one could be so crazy. Zhu Wudi also appeared on the field. Lin Yuji, Qin Fengyu, and Lu Hua were still on the chaotic battlefield. He did not know how they were doing, but they should be safe. Although Sua Xiaofan had sent them to the chaotic battlefield outside, he would not let them die. They were most likely assigned to some stronghold to manage some things. Kang Xinmu looked around and saw many Dragon Emperor mentors appearing on the spectator stand. Tan Shoujua and Chu Yueqiang also appeared. When they arrived at the scene, they first looked for Jiang Shenwu's position. Then, they respectively nodded at Jiang Shenwu, giving him a friendly look. After all, Kang Xinmu's return this time had greatly increased their strength. The heaven-level Saint spiritual dragon weapon given to them had greatly increased their combat power. They were already strong existences on the 9th level of Dragon Emperor, almost becoming Super Shenron. This time, of course, they wanted to show off their skills in the arena battle of the Dragon Emperor mentors. Be it Tan Shoujua or Chu Yueqiang, their strength was not much weaker than Shengguan Dai's. It could be said that Chu Yueqiang and Tan Shoujua from Donghuang Yanwu College had the best chance of entering the top 10 of the arena battle. Of course, it was just the best chance. Maybe they would not even enter the top 10, this time. There were also many Dragon Emperor powerhouses from the Dragon Emperor Kingdom who wanted to participate in the arena battle. These were all Dragon Emperor powerhouses from the Dragon Emperor Kingdom. Many of them had reached the peak of the 4th level of Dragon Emperor, and they also planned to participate in the arena battle. Their combat power was generally not too high, but they wanted to take the opportunity to hone themselves and feel the combat power of other races. It was difficult for them to feel it personally just by watching, so the main thing was to go on the stage and fight with the cultivators from other races. Anyway, in theory, the arena battle was a battle to learn from each other. If you could not win, you could just admit defeat. The other party would not chase after you. There were about 90 Dragon Emperor powerhouses. To be honest, due to the recent increase in cultivation resources in the Dragon Martial continent, many Dragon Emperor level powerhouses had improved. Their cultivation had also broken through to the peak of the 4th level of Dragon Emperor. For example, Dragon Emperor Yen, if it was not for Kang Xinmu helping him break through the bottleneck, he would now only be at the peak of the 4th level of Dragon Emperor. Therefore, there were a lot of Dragon Emperor powerhouses at this stage. It was normal for there to be close to 100 of them. In addition to these, there were the Dragon Martial Artists from the hidden Dragon Martial Artist family. Those who were still at the 4th level of Dragon Emperor were basically the younger generation. However, the hidden Dragon Martial Artist family's origin Dragon Martial technique was still very strong. They also had a lot of Holy Spirit Dragon weapons. Recently, they had participated in the chaotic battle with other races. Those who could survive would definitely get a lot of rewards, so their combat power was not weak. There were about 50 participants from the hidden Dragon Martial Artist family. In total, there were about 250 people on the side of the Dragon Gods. This number was not small, but it was not large either. Kang Xinmu sat down next to Yuyaji and then looked at the void in the distance. In the void in the other 9 directions were the spectator seats of the other 9 races. It could be seen that the spectator seats of the 9 races were densely packed with at least a few hundred people. There were as few as 700 or 800 people, and as many as more than 1,000 people. It should be known that the 9 races were not the home ground. They basically came to the Dragon Martial continent to participate in the arena battles. Even if a small half of them were going to participate in the arena battles of the Dragon Emperor Mentor level, the remaining half would participate in the arena battles of the 4th level of Emperor level and below. There were at least 400 or 500 people. It could be said that there were twice as many people as in the Dragon Martial continent. However, this did not mean that the Dragon Gods were too weak. It was because this time, only the native Dragon Martial Artists of the Dragon Martial continent were participating. If the conditions were magnified to the entire Dragon God clan, there were thousands of disciples of the 5 extremes mysterious Ice Holy Land who could participate in this arena battle, and their strength was also very strong. This arena battle was actually a benefit for the Dragon Martial continent. If someone from the Dragon Martial continent could rise, even if it was just a random ranking, it would bring great benefits. The ranking of this arena battle was discussed behind the scenes by the Supreme Big Shots, and it also represented the distribution of benefits in many aspects, so it could be said to be of great importance. There are so many people from other races. Jiang Shenwu really did not expect that the number of participants from the other races would be more than double that of the Dragon Martial Warriors. If the Dragon Martial continent's Dragon Martial Warriors wanted to obtain a ranking in the arena battle, the chances of them obtaining a ranking would be much smaller. After all, the current Dragon Martial Artists of the Dragon Martial continent really did not have any advantages compared to the practitioners of those races. Perhaps only Kang Xinmu had the combat power to crush the people at this stage. The others, including Xiao Bai, Ran Ran, Xiao Yuhua, Liang Xiao, and the others, might not necessarily have the combat power to crush the people at this stage. It was very likely that they would be defeated by the geniuses of other races. Although the arena battle was a competition, it was extremely cruel. Chapter 4802. A challenge like this was not just a test of one-on-one combat strength. More importantly, it was a test of endurance. To stand in the arena and fight all the time, it required a lot of endurance. It was very likely that some practitioners had strong explosive power, but their endurance was weak. In that case, it was impossible for them to stay in the arena. They could only go up and defeat their opponents before the end of the battle. But it was impossible for them to go up and fight until the end of the battle, because if they wanted to compete for the next battle, they had to rely on their own speed. After the end of the battle, as long as other opponents flew over the arena, the next round of battle would immediately start. Therefore, this kind of arena battle was very intense. Even if one wanted to go on stage at the last moment to save as much energy as possible, it was possible that they would face great competition. It was possible that they would miss the challenge time because of the competition and miss the top 16. As long as the practitioners were still standing in the arena, they could get some rewards. The higher their ranking in the final knockout round, the more rewards they would get. As more and more people came, the supreme masters of the 10 clans all rose to the sky and communicated with each other. Among the clans, the supreme masters of their respective clans would announce the start of the battle. For this kind of joint action between clans, there would be no opening speech. The key was that they couldn't choose someone to announce it. Who would announce it? The relationship between clans was not so good. The supreme masters of the dragon gods could not order the ordinary practitioners of other clans. Therefore, there was no need to announce the opening speech. On the side of the dragon gods, as the supreme masters of the 10 clans finished communicating with each other, the dragon god Calamity announced the start of the battle. With the order of the blue sky tribulation dragon, the arena battle officially began. It could be seen that from the spectator seats of the 10 clans, many practitioners flew out almost at the same time. These were basically young geniuses at the 4th level of the imperial stage, and they could not be more than 50 years old. All of them quickly flew toward the arenas. On the way, they broke out their fastest speed, so they activated all the power of their inherited bloodline. This time, it could be said that 100 flowers were blooming. Kang Xinmu could clearly see that around the 16 arenas in front of him, many practitioners appeared at the same time. There was also a water god phantom that was condensed behind him, moving through the void at the fastest speed possible, bringing with it a long river of light blue water attribute energy. Some of them transformed into demon gods and landed on the arena in a violent manner, becoming the first arena lord. Some transformed into fire phoenixes, which were cultivators of the ancient phoenix clan. They flew directly into one of the 16 arenas. It could be said that the 9 clans were very active, and they were the fastest. On the other hand, the dragon gods were more conservative. After all, they were all native dragon warriors of the dragon martial continent. They were not particularly familiar with the experts of the other clans, so there was no need to go to the arena to seek death. Although many dragon martial artists of the dragon martial continent have recently interacted with other races, and have even killed many members of other races, their contact time is still short. Basically, they have only interacted with 2 or 3 of the races. Under such circumstances, they needed to observe carefully. They had to gain some understanding of the fighting style of a race that they were unfamiliar with. This was also a safer method. However, Kang Xinmu was not one of them. At the beginning of this arena battle, Kang Xinmu directly transformed into a black dragon, traveled through the void by means of the wind shadow flowing cloud flash, and directly landed on the nearest arena. Kang Xinmu intended to defend the arena. Amazing, Kang Xinmu directly flew up, so fast. If you want to grab the position of the first arena lord, you have to be fast enough. We can't do it. Since we can't grab the position of the first arena lord, let's observe the situation first. On the 16 arenas, they were quickly occupied. Immediately after, the other 16 people rushed into the various arenas. Then, each arena was separated by a supreme level of power. The first arena battle began. Anyway, as long as there were more than 2 people on each arena, there would be supreme power to open the isolation, marking the beginning of the arena battle. Kang Xinmu went on the arena, but Xiao Bai, Liang Xiao, Xiao Yuhua, and Ran Ran did not act rashly. They wanted to get a ranking this time, so they could not act recklessly. They had to first observe the opponents on each arena. In this kind of arena battle, there was basically a conventional rule that people of one's own race would not challenge practitioners of another race. For example, it was impossible for the Dragon God clan to challenge the dragon warriors of other dragon martial continent. They had to find practitioners of other races to fight and strive to defeat all the practitioners of other races. The first batch of people who had the confidence to occupy the arena were definitely very confident in their own strength. So seeing that they came so quickly, the others were not too anxious. When the supreme protective barrier of each arena was opened, some of the practitioners who were flying towards the arenas were blocked in the void outside. They could only wait for the arena battles to end, and the supreme protection barrier would open again to let them in. Together, it gathered to form a void disk. Kong Shinmu's 7 Hui dragon bursts all bombarded this void disk, and all the power that erupted was actually absorbed by the void disk. Kong Shinmu's expression changed. His attack did not have any effect on this young virtual human tribe powerhouse. His opponent actually used a strange virtual human tribe martial technique to divert his attack away. This also meant that Kong Shinmu's attack was useless. In this case, he could only use a more primitive method to deal with his opponent. Devouring power. Kong Shinmu did not panic at all. Seeing that his opponent's void disk had actually diverted his attack away, he immediately tore through the void and arrived in front of the 2 waves of void energy that his opponent had just released. The main thing was that his devouring power erupted and began to devour these waves of void energy. The terrifying devouring power allowed Kong Shinmu to quickly devour these void energy, and at this moment, his resistance against void energy rapidly increased. At the same time, Kong Shinmu also used the Divine Dragon Tyrant Body technique to defend himself. Since he could not use brute force to deal with his opponent, he would directly defend himself. He would first resist his opponent's attacks, so that no attacks from his opponent could pose any threat to Kong Shinmu. This way, Kong Shinmu would be invincible. First, he would be invincible and create a favorable situation for himself. Then, Kong Shinmu wanted to try out the heaven-deficient demonic dragon of ice and fire's techniques. At this moment, the young virtual human tribe powerhouse clearly reacted. He followed Kong Shinmu's movements and continuously released void energy waves at Kong Shinmu. The void energy ripple attack that Jiang Shenwu cultivated was an extremely powerful technique for him. Moreover, Jiang Shenwu discovered that the speed at which Jiang Shenwu executed the ripple attack was getting faster and faster. It was obvious that this Void God Realm martial technique would become faster and faster as it was executed. This way, the battlefield would soon be filled with the void energy waves. No matter how fast Kong Shinmu dodged, he would be directly hit by the void energy waves. When that happened, the young virtual human tribe powerhouse felt that his victory was imminent. After all, although this attack was slow, it was extremely powerful. Most importantly, if he used it enough times, he would be able to reach the state where he could use this move with just a raise of his hand. This was the effect of this Void God Realm martial technique. It had an immersive effect of the void energy. This allowed him to use any Void God Realm martial technique at a terrifying speed. In the battlefield, the void energy waves continued to explode and bombard Kong Shinmu. However, as Kong Shinmu dodged, he continued to absorb the power of the void energy waves with his devouring power. After about 10 attacks from his opponent, Kong Shinmu felt that he could already block 90% of the void energy attacks. His resistance to the void energy had reached the highest level. It's about time. Kong Shinmu's face darkened slightly. He was still a little nervous. He displayed the Divine Dragon Tyrant Body technique's defensive stance. When his opponent released another wave of void energy waves, he did not dodge for the first time. Instead, he met his opponent's attack head-on. By this time, the entire battlefield was filled with void energy waves. It would be difficult for him to dodge even if he wanted to. Of course, this was slightly easier than the Crystal Arrow stage. However, in a battle of this level, there was no need for Kong Shinmu to play it so dangerously. His resistance to the void energy was already sufficient. Chapter 4804. Many people outside were still paying attention to what was happening on Kong Shinmu's side. This was especially so on the side of the dragon gods. Many people were already paying attention to Kong Shinmu. Moreover, there were now 16 arenas, and this was the arena closest to the dragon god's spectator stand. Naturally, they would pay attention to Kang Xinmu first. Many dragon martial artists were a little disappointed by the battle between Kang Xinmu and the young expert from the Void Human tribe. There was no doubt that Kang Xinmu was already the strongest person on the 4th level of the Dragon Emperor in the Dragon Martial Continent at this stage. However, facing this expert from the Void Human tribe, he seemed to be unable to do anything to his opponent. No one knew if his opponent was too strong, or if Kang Xinmu was not strong enough to crush him. Regardless, now Kang Xinmu finally went berserk and directly rushed towards his opponent's Void Power Wave attack. A terrifying power suddenly exploded in the arena. The expressions of Xiao Bai, Ran, and the others all tensed up. Although they all knew that Kang Xinmu's defense was very strong, the opponent's Void Power Wave was obviously not that easy to resist. The next moment, in the arena, Kang Xinmu's black dragon body finally appeared again. He appeared in the center of the energy vortex that had exploded from the Void Power Wave. Most importantly, Kang Xinmu's divine dragon body did not seem to be injured at all. He had actually used his divine dragon body to directly resist his opponent's attack. At this moment, many people in the spectator stand on the side of the dragon gods let out cheers. The young expert from the Void Human tribe's opponent's seemingly extremely violent attack was actually directly blocked by Kang Xinmu's divine dragon body. This undoubtedly meant that this young expert from the Void Human tribe might not be able to do anything to Kang Xinmu. Seeing this, the young expert from the Void Human tribe's calm eyes also revealed a hint of seriousness. He took out a void energy weapon from his bosom. Kang Xinmu could sense that this specter weapon was a sky rank specter weapon. It was the strongest weapon an emperor rank could wield. However, this phantom weapon had not been illuminated, so its power could not compare to Kang Xinmu's Phantom Ghost Book and Great Compassion Heavenly Dragon Seal. Of course, Kang Xinmu would not underestimate it. Putting aside what kind of strange abilities this phantom weapon might have, even if it was just a pure attack-type battle weapon, it was not something that Jiang Shenwu could withstand with just his physical body alone. Even if it was just a pure attack-type battle weapon, it was still not something that Jiang Shenwu could withstand with just his physical body. In any case, Kang Xinmu cautiously activated the heaven-deficient demonic dragon of ice and fire's power. The two powers of ice and fire revolved around his black dragon body. Together, they formed a pillar of fire and an ice pillar that swept towards the young expert from the Void Human tribe. Terrifying power erupted in an instant. Apart from the ability to devour, the heaven-deficient demonic dragon of ice and fire's power of ice and fire was also extremely violent. This could be seen from the 9 layers of engravings on the sacred ring. The power of ice and fire erupted in an instant and enveloped the young expert from the Void Human tribe. The young expert from the Void Human tribe took out a specter weapon. It was a super powerful clock-like weapon. Seeing that Kang Xinmu's ice and fire powers were about to attack him, he immediately activated the clock-like specter weapon. Layers of void power barriers immediately formed and blocked the impact of the ice and fire powers outside the void power barriers. This attack seems very strong, but it can't break through my defenses. This young expert from the Void Human clan was obviously not easy to deal with. His expression was cold, and then the void weapon erupted with its most terrifying might. It condensed a wave of void energy ripples at an extremely terrifying speed. After that, these ripples rumbled towards Jiang Shenwu, and it was like a shockwave from the void was heading straight towards him. This was a terrifying attack unleashed by the use of a specter weapon. Its power was at least several times stronger. Kang Xinmu definitely did not dare to take this attack head-on. However, at this moment, he directly faced this shockwave and activated the heaven-deficient demonic dragon of ice and fire's ability to devour. When this ability was activated in conjunction with Kang Xinmu's own devouring innate talent, he felt everything around him suddenly become extremely slow. Everything around him slowed down by 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 10 times, 20 times. The power of devouring and the power of the heaven-deficient demonic dragon of ice and fire is seamless. It's the strongest power in the world. The ancestral demon god's consciousness exclaimed in awe. His consciousness was located in Kang Shinmu's mind, so he could feel the changes in time around him. Logically speaking, the power of time could only be controlled after reaching an unparalleled level. However, Kang Shinmu was now using the power of devouring and the power of the heaven-deficient demonic dragon of ice and fire to slow down time around him. Or rather, he was making himself move faster. This kind of ability to control time was extremely terrifying. The main reason was that the power of devouring had strengthened the heaven-deficient demonic dragon of ice and fire's ability to devour time. Otherwise, it would not have been so heaven-defying. Soon, the flow of time around Kang Shinmu was slowed down by 100 times. This speed allowed Kang Shinmu to do a lot of things. Everything in the world was conserved, especially when it came to energy and power. Kang Shinmu's ability to control time didn't come from Kang Shinmu himself. Instead, it came from devouring the time of his opponent. This meant that outside the arena, time was normal. However, inside the arena, it looked like the young virtual human tribe powerhouse was completely motionless. Kang Shinmu, on the other hand, began to cultivate. He began to absorb some rare treasures. These rare treasures contained the spirit chi of heaven and earth. However, they could not restore one's innate talent, so they were not restricted in the arena. More importantly, who would absorb these rare treasures in the arena? That was impossible. And now, Kang Shinmu had done it. He devoured the time of the young virtual human tribe powerhouse. The young virtual human tribe powerhouse stood rooted to the ground. Meanwhile, Kang Shinmu used the time he devoured to quickly absorb these rare treasures to improve himself. This won't do. His opponent is still too weak. The efficiency of the time he devoured isn't high. The ancestral demon god's consciousness sighed and said. 100 times the efficiency of time conversion was not high enough? Kang Shinmu was shocked. Just how high was the requirement for the ancestral demon god's consciousness?